House. In the motion, key resolutions needed that the Department of Finance, led by the CEC, to come and appear before the entire House and be able to give information as to how we are able to deal with the same. Secondly, I think the last time we were here, that was one of the issues we were able to consider. So I'll take this opportunity to welcome all the honorable members. I'll just introduce the one in front here. On my right, we have the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Sang. On my immediate left, the mover of the motion, Honorable Mengech, and on my extreme left, Honorable Walter Teno, the Budget Chair. I'm sure we'll be joined by Honorable Gideon Koech, Implementation Chair, and all the other members led by the Minority Leader. I can see Kikuri Chepkwony walking out. I can see Honorable Mayo, Honorable Pius Murray, Honorable Pius Singoe, Chairman Roads. We have Honorable Terry Mayo. We also have Honorable Cynthia Muge. And I think lastly behind, I can see Honorable Tufosa Kuto. Other members will come in. Our format of the questioning will be in two ways. This is an open session, so I'll be able to give a chance to the members to be able to ask specific questions. Secondly, we will expect your team to be able to furnish us with write-up for the same. You can make reference to the write-ups. I am aware one or two responses have already been deposited with the Assembly. You can make reference to it, but after the session, if they'll need for amendment and further information, you can still be able to furnish us. We'll give strict timelines within which to be able to get the same. Lastly, the issues, I will split them into three. The substance of the motion was on pending bills. And I think we've been able to prepare our questions based on what we served in our letter. On top of that, we'll have follow-up on two other issues because it is related to, like on the issue of procurement, and I can see the head of procurement chain. Secondly, there'll be the issue of unresolved resolution touching on the department. Last week, I'm sure you were able to meet the PICPAC report. Members of the PICPAC committee are also here, and we expect them also to be able to butt in this. Without wasting time, I want to apologize because the session was supposed to start at 10, but due to an avoidable delay, we are here. Let us make use of the time. It is important, and I want to understate that this is an important session because it affects both of us. The County Assembly has a mandate of giving solutions and answers to the members of public, but we are not the implementing arm. Ours is to convey, ours is to find out, ours is to oversight. So take this session with the seriousness it deserves. Remember, whatever you give us should be the gospel truth, because that is what we rely on. We can't rely on any other thing based on what you give. The CC, I'm sure you've taken a note, and I'm sure even when you appear before the Senate, you know what that means. Whatever you use, we can use it against you. When you are doing the report, that is what we rely upon. So thank you so much. Maybe I'll ask you to quickly introduce your team before I come in.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the leadership of the House. My name is Alfred Lagat, the CC member in charge of finance. I just want to quickly give a chance for my colleagues to introduce themselves.
My name is Meshak Malakwen, Chief of Staff Finance.
Helen Kemboy, Director of Finance.
Jafet Tirop, Head of Supply Chain.
Priska Muige, Head Budget and Economic Planning.
Administrator Finance.
The first issue that I think the committee picked up, and it came from a previous committee. We had the ad hoc committee that sat and had their resolutions adopted in the House in July. And that as a preliminary matter before we go to the substance. In July, when the House sat and adopted the report, ad hoc report, I think the committee was chaired by Honorable Mengech, and in their resolution, to failure to appear in, I think, one or two instances, and there are some other things that came on board. And their resolution, they specifically said, and the House adopted, is a resolution that yourself, I think I've just been shared by the committee. One, yes, the CEC Finance was fined to the tune of 500,000. The Chief Officer, Malakwen, was fined 400,000. And then the Head of Supply Chains was fined 300,000. That was to be complied, just like the same way the Senate does it. That should be the first thing that I would want us to dispense with without going further.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, indeed, that is the position as you've rightfully communicated. However, Mr. Speaker, in our assessment, we've of course been contemplating on really how to comply on this, but we really found the penalties quite punitive. I know the law allows this house to fine, but my request, and I knew that this would come up at such a time, is that we really needed to plead for leniency. The figures involved are ridiculous. Personally, even raising 500,000 is such an uphill task. I'd requested that I plead for leniency on behalf of myself, the chief officer, and the director for procurement,
Chair.
or we be given an alternative,
Clarification,
perhaps
Chair.
way of being able to settle this.
Point of
I
order,
shall
Chair.
be guided.
Before you proceed, let me take
Yeah.
the point of order, Honorable Cynthia.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, is it in order for the CEC Finance to term the penalty and resolutions of this county assembly as punitive and ridiculous, Honorable Chair? Honorable Chair, it is the highest level of disrespect to this House, Honorable Chair.
To be fair, the CC, your point of punitive makes sense. But when you use the word ridiculous, that would be, in fact, I can't come to your office and use the word ridiculous. Ridiculous would mean you would be indicting the resolutions. I would ask you to withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw ridiculous.
Honorable Chair,
Honorable Kipkuri Chepkwony.
at that instance, Chair, I think we should not be discussing about whether to pay or not. Honorable Chair, the simple fact that the CC has indicated that they are aware of the rulings by the committee, and the only thing that we should be discussing now is why they never abided by that. And if what he is indicating that there is pleading for leniency should have come beforehand, he can only proceed to commit otherwise, but not seeking leniency at this point.
I had but you, I think I had stopped your presentation. I would want you to finish before I can respond. Those 2 points of orders notwithstanding. Proceed quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So as I was saying, we really wanted that the House finds it in its favor, considering this was the very first offense, as it were, that has actually been taken all the way to fining. Our pleading was, if the House withdraws these fines, and going forward, really, by the time we get to being fined, we really be given adequate chance to be heard on a number of those things. But I want to confirm that the House pronounced itself and felt it is right that we be fined. There's always a chance for appeal. We really wanted that in the spirit of the new corporation, because when you look at the items that made us to be fined, going forward from that time, we've really never missed any committee meeting. All the responses have always been done on time. So there's, Mr. Speaker, there's like some penance. We've actually made well our ways, and sometimes the issue of fine is to really rectify or make us toe the line, which we've since done.
CC, with due respect, I'm sure you understand the import of this particular issue, even without going to the content. The House, in pronouncing itself, the same way when you write to your officers asking for reports, for example, the least you'd expect of them is a response, first thing first. And that is a show or the testament of goodwill. We would not even fine you because of the content, but rather fine on the basis of contempt. And contempt is normally a penalty applied in courts or in parliament or in our assembly, purely on the basis that this particular officer never bothered to respond, never bothered to give his or her writing. If you go to a court of law, for example, I have sued you, you have to put in a response. Whether my suit is has no basis in law, the easiest you can do is to respond. So I'm more concerned about the issue that we sought to cure was, if you call upon you, you can be able to come. If we ask you to respond, you can be able to respond. I think one thing you need to address yourself is the penalty was purely to punish contempt, without even the content. The content, we can deal with it here. The main thing is the contempt. Secondly, you've asked for the reduction of the same. I'm sure last time you were here, you said things are done formally, and I think it was written. A resolution was adopted and it was written. I'm sure it concerned you much. For example, the amounts, you would respond instantly and say, fine, we take responsibility for the issues raised, but these are our prayers. What was so difficult in getting that right up as soon as the same was served to you people?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed, I agree. This ought to have come up by way of writing as early as perhaps 2 weeks after I received the letter. However, in light of the circumstances wherein, could you then, Chair, allow me that I respond to this issue before end of day today in writing, making clear my prayers? Could you allow me that before end of day today, I respond, making clear my prayers on the same matter?
I think I've just consulted with the chair ad hoc, and we sit together in the powers and privileges and the deputy speaker. I'm sure you understand the input. The main thing that we want to point across is we rarely call you, but when we call you over a matter, the seriousness it deserves. You've seen Senate calling yesterday, I think last week, the governor Kitui County, Honorable Charity Ngil, was fined by Senate. The CS Matiang'i, however powerful he appears, he was fined. Governor Paranya, Chair COG, had to pay the same fine and had to appear in person. So you need to understand the input about the same thing. However, upon consultation, because we wouldn't want also to digress from the main issues that come to this table, the first thing we are giving this direction. Number one, before close of business, in writing, each individual, that is, I expect your chief officer as well as the head of procurement to give their respective write-ups. Tomorrow, the Powers and Privileges Committee will be considering the same to come before the House for consideration in the afternoon.
I think, Chair, the most prudent question
Honorable Gideon, proceed.
that should be the CEC should spell out clearly the reason as to why this has not been acted, despite the fact that he has talked of punitive. What informed the fact that around 3, 4, 5 months down the line, he has not found it wise and courteous? So it's because even if he responds in before the close of business, won't that be because of the fact that that question has just come up from this meeting? Can he clearly explain why he has taken that long, despite the fact that he's talking of punitive?
Before I could finish my ruling, I think that being the chair of implementation, and he is the member that the House normally goes to and ask why the same was not responded to, for the benefit, because I'm sure as at the time you are answering, he wasn't here. Could you answer that so that I can finish with my direction? Answer the member directly.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's about 4 or 5 months. Really, the reasons are varied, but one of the reasons can't be contempt, as it were. It's not that I really didn't take the directive seriously. The first attempt or the first action I took was to even try and see whether we could raise the funds. Secondly was to seek clarification as to whether I was fined as an individual or as an office, which then would inform whether it's the office is paying the funds or it is the individual, myself, paying the monies. And whereas I was really trying to determine all those, it really became clear that these amounts were just punitive, and therefore the prayer was for leniency. But again, we've had continuous engagements to the point whereby it's almost become a forgotten matter, and therefore any response or failure to make any response is not entirely out of malice or out of contempt, but I think things have been moving so fast. Yeah.
Honorable
You'd be
Chair.
leaking. I knew you'd get that
Honorable Chair.
response.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I think the CEC Finance is just being disrespectful, utterly disrespectful, Honorable Chair. Because, Honorable Chair, how can he say that a fine that was passed by honorable members of this county of Nandi, 39 of them, Honorable Chair, that it is somehow a forgotten matter, Honorable Speaker, and it is something that was communicated officially. Honorable Chair, I think the CEC Finance is just being very disrespectful. And were it for me, Honorable Chair, this particular session will not continue before he gives, together with the other two persons, the checks or testimonies that this money has been paid. Honorable Speaker, because this is amounting to disrespect to this House, Honorable Chair.
Hoja ni damu, Mheshimiwa Spika.
Honorable Fred.
Mheshimiwa Spika, kipengele namba 80, Mheshimiwa Spika, inasema wasi yale imepitishwa bunge hii na Mheshimiwa Spika na waheshimiwa hairuhusiwi tena kuongea juu yake, ile imebaki ni kutekeleza, Mheshimiwa Spika. Ya pili, Mheshimiwa Spika, kama Mheshimiwa Waziri ambatane na hii sheria, sisi tuende mbele na hiyo sheria kwa sababu sheria ni wazi, Mheshimiwa Spika.
So thank you so much. I think Honorable Fraud, you've brought it very well, and that's why the powers and privileges will take it up immediately. You have at least the close of business. By close of business, we need that. The consideration and the powers and privileges will have to appear before the House with their resolution tomorrow. Fair enough?
Fair enough, Chair. Thanks.
Now, at this juncture, I want to invite the Chair Budget to just first go with the first questions as per the motion, and we pick from there. Honorable Walter Teno.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Waziri, mine will be a simple question, and I will ask how or can you give us the exact amount of the pending bills that this count is found? And number two, so that you can respond on those two questions, is can you give us also an itemized pending bills as per the departments, so that we can know which department has an exact amount of pending bills? So we need that one as in writing again, so that can be tabled in this Honorable House. Thank you.
Maybe to add on that, as you said, itemized, 1 per department, 2 per financial years, because there seem to be an overlap. The letter we got seemed to specify going back to 15, 16, 16, 17. So as you answer that, consider also per year, per financial year, per department, per financial year. Proceed.
And maybe you can, again, to add on that one, Honorable Chair, is you can also show us the amount which has been paid already on those financial years. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and also thank you, Chair, for budget. We are talking of, in this case, pending bills touching on basically 3 financial years. The first financial year is 2016-17 and backwards. And then we have bills for 17-18 and then 18-19. Of course, the current year, we really do not have a pending bill. Of course, to just clarify is that what we are talking of as pending bills already are works which have been completed, presented, and even invoiced, awaiting payment. In this case, then there will be a number of items that will not qualify to be called pending bills. So, Chair, if you remember, when there's a report we presented to this House, which basically was to touch on historical pending bills, the task force report, which was tabled before this House, and that is basically what we went with as the starting point of the pending bills. That, Chair, is an amount of about 420 million shillings. At the status currently of all the departments of what we would call pending bills, and in this case pending bills which are eligible for payment in terms of works that's been done, is 324,937,413. So when you add 420 million shillings that was actually brought forward from the task force report, which are legitimate, and out of that 420 million, we've since paid 15 million for the slaughterhouse and 3.2 million shillings for a dispensary, a health center, which was in Lolgeringet. That is about 3.9 million shillings. It gives us a total figure of 718 million shillings as the pending bills figure. However, that is now the verified position, 718 million shillings, and that one is itemized. The list can actually be provided. However, we look at that in contrast with what the Auditor General, or the Control of Budget, the Auditor General basically came up with, and their figure as it stands as at now is 822 million shillings. So the disparity or the difference of 822 million shillings. That gives us a difference of about 104 million shillings. And these 104 million shillings are items they classified as eligible, but in our opinion, they're ineligible as per the task force report. And these are the subject of discussions between us and the National Treasury, the Budget Office, where they wanted us to provide further information, both to the Treasury and to the Auditor General, as to why there is that ineligibility confusion between what they saw, what they verified as eligible, and what we feel are ineligible, to close the gap, to give us really a figure of 718 million shillings. So that is the status as per our records. But as per the records of the Auditor General and the National Treasury and the Control of Budget, which they used, the Auditor General's report, it's 822 million shillings. We were given, till actually this week, end of this week, to be able to resolve the matter, and a small team was set up by the CS Treasury, comprising of the Deputy Auditor General, CPA Rugera, the Director General in charge of budget is called Albert Mwenda, the Acting Controller of Budget, who unfortunately his term has ended, that is Masha, who has since delegated to a director in his office, and the CECs from all the counties to really resolve and reconcile to give the true position. So for us, we are closing the gap between the 822 and the 708 million shillings, which we will do by end of this week. Thank you.
The second question was, can you spread them out? Because you've mentioned there's 26 and 17 going back, there's 17, 18, and there's 18, 19. Could you split them and give us the exact figure so that we can be able to track? That was the second question.
Yes, Chair. To break the 824 million, the 324 million, the current, what I would call completed works, which are now calling pending bills, is under the Department of Executive, we have 14 million. Finance, we have 24 million. Administration, we have 28 million.
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
Can you be a bit slow so that we can capture the...
I would even first ask, the first question was, can you spread them financial years? And then we come to the departments. Because you had just mentioned
Chair.
420,
Chair,
then 324. Honorable Gideon?
could we have the document
You have the
Can
documents
we-
with you
can we-
that
can
we
we-
can be
can
able
they
to
share
share
the
as
documents?
you refer to?
Well, if you give us some time, we can
You can just one
copies.
copy, the sergeants can
Yes.
photocopy?
We
Yes.
can get a copy.
Okay. Furnish the sergeants. So start with the financial year, the way you had classified them. 16, 17 going back, 17, 18, and 18, 19 collectively, and then now come to the departments. Then you go slow as members try record. Proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I would like to...
Yeah. The clerks can take.
This is the summary of...
Proceed. Yes. And let me ask for the same be photocopied for the members of the committee to have a look. Proceed. But is it the same copy?
Yeah, pending bills. Task force. Yes, so...
It's the same copy. So just give me one copy. So have the other photocopied. Proceed.
So, Chair, thank you. For the historical, in this case, while the task force has not broken down 13, 14, 14, 15, we just have the ballpark figures. Under executive, we have 95 million. Oh, sorry, it is 14 million, 14.5 million. Under finance, we have 2.5 million. Under health and sanitation, we have 207 million. Roads, transport and infrastructure, we have 10 million. Agriculture, we have 50 million. Education and vocational research and education and vocational training, we have 60 million. Under lands, environment and natural resources, we have 681,000. And Chair, I'll just give a rider to that because I'll revisit that. Then under trade and investments, we have 10 million. Under tourism, we have 5.6 million. Department of Administration, we have 9 million. Youth, we have 49 million. And the total comes to 420 million shillings.
That one is up to year 16, 17.
Up to year 16, 17.
Proceed.
On the year 17, 18, Chair, what I have here, because, well, the document before you is, I can actually say it's about 70%, 17-18, I will have a separate a document that has actually separated 17-18 and 18-19. We just lumped together because these are bills known to us and they really do not have an issue. But let me read the combined figures and then later on we'll separate and provide to the House. Under executive, we have 14 million. Under finance, we have 24 million. Administration, we have 28 million. Health, we have 79 million. Agriculture, we have 13 million. Tourism, we have 3 million. Sports, we have 23 million. Education, we have 25 million. Lands, we have 63 million. Roads, we have 30 million. Trade, we have 16 million, giving us a total of 324 million. So, Chair, when you add the 324 million plus 420 million, then subtract 18.5 from the 420. Because of the 420, the historical, we've actually paid two items. We've paid the slaughterhouse at 15 million, and we've paid a dispensary at 3.9 million. So it gives us the current figure of the pending bills. Each of those, there is a detailed list supporting each of those figures per department, and the same is provided before us to itemize each of those. Thank you.
Honorable Mengech, because it's a follow-up of the same question.
Just before I proceed to the next question, Honorable Chair, there is pending bills omitted in the list, 43,304,000. Omitted in which list? CPA, which list is that? The summary of departmental pending bill status, 43,304,887.
Yes, this one is already picked in the list. It is in the system. You see, when these guys, when they're printing out, they don't print out what has already been committed in the system. But for us, since we've not paid, it's still pending, but already those are items that were in the system.
Thank you.
So that means it's a pending bill.
Honorable Chair.
Honorable.
I'm here, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Kipkuru Chepkon.
Honorable Chair, what got my attention is there is a disputed amount of 104 million between the county government and the Office of the Auditor General. I would want to get further clarification on that, Honorable Chair, because if the Auditor General says they are eligible and the county are saying it is ineligible, what is the real issue, and what are these pending bills? Where are these projects? What is it all about? The 104 million.
CC.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed, the disputed 104 million shillings, I said, is what the Auditor General classifies as eligible, but on our end, we feel it is ineligible. And I'd say that the list is available. We'll actually, it's part of the things we'll also provide. Mostly, these are items that, as I said, I appeared here last week, and I'd said the reason we had not even tabled the Auditor General's report is because we actually were still doing the back and forth reconciliation, because largely it was a desktop job. They did a desktop job, which meant that they really didn't go out. So whereas they were able to pick projects which showed clear documentation and everything is complete on paper, on the ground, really, there was no project. And so the bulk of that are actually projects which have been captured as clean, but when you go to the ground, or when you make reference to the task force report, the task force report says there's no work on the ground, there's no project on the ground, yet the papers were okay. So since the Auditor General really didn't get a chance to go to the field, he was not able to pick or able to tell why these are ineligible. Some of those items still are items which have gaps, and Chair, what then we said is the 104 million is still items that will still subject to the newly formed pending bills committee, so that they look further and to the next level of the task force committee, and then finally we'll satisfy ourselves. Ultimately, it's not even the committee. It's not the Auditor General who determines what to be paid. Ultimately, it rests with me and the accounting officers, because we really need to satisfy ourselves. So then still, these are items that are still under investigations and ongoing, because we also have scenarios whereby there are projects, but there are no documents. So we are trying to reconcile in the spirit of value for money. How do you handle something that you have projects, but then you have no documents? So all these things, we are putting our heads together, and we're hoping with the coming in of the task force committee, we'll also still have some level of input so that we resolve those matters. And this chair is a scenario cutting across all the counties. When we sat, we had a CEC's Finance caucus on Monday at the COG. It emerged that all the problems were more or less the same. The auditors basically did a desktop job, and you realize these were consultants hired. These were not necessarily the staff of the Auditor General. So there have been challenges of understanding how governments work, and with the limited time they were given, they were not able to really conclusively address it.
We'll come back to that, Honorable
Chair, I have not concluded. Can I make a follow-up on the same?
Because I wanted you to tie it down, because there are 3 reports that we needed answer on, including that of Auditor General. Could I indulge you that to...
No, Chair, so that we concluded this on the matter.
Proceed.
Can we also hear from the CEC then, when we are talking about this disputed 104 million, we have had 3 reports in this county. There was a task force team that was...
That's why I'm saying you're preempting. It's a substantive question that I wanted you to come after it is asked by Honorable Mengech. It was a substance of the motion, and I would want you to follow up on the same, because it is in line. We would want a comprehensive, then you can come in. Let me indulge you on the same.
All right, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Mengech.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Before I go to the substantive question, I want to ask the issue of ineligible and illegitimate pending bills. As at February, from the Auditor General, from the COB and the National Treasury, records show that our county had outstanding bills which are declared ineligible or illegitimate at 505 million. I don't know whether the CC would tell the committee the issues of ineligible pending bills, because we have officers which were carried over from the other government. Who is responsible for this? At what level? At what level are we incurring such a huge ineligible pending bill?
Thank you. Yes, I make reference to that summary of pending bills after the audit by the OAG, which basically shows the status of payments, and which has since been revised, and I'll share the revised copy shortly. The 500, you remember when we did the task force report, the submissions were 1.3 billion shillings. The same submissions were presented to the Auditor General, and therefore the 505 million shillings are ineligible based on the historical figures that we found in the system. On that 505 million, ours, as per the task force report, actually declared about 900, I will get the exact figure, about 900 million shillings as ineligible. So on this list where we are number 11, 505 million largely captures what the Auditor General, after the submissions by contractors, you remember they put the advert on paper and submissions were made. The submissions made by contractors, when they determined and looked through the documents, they came up with a figure of about 505 million shillings. And the total submissions was 1.44 billion shillings. And remember, on the task force report, we had received about 1.3 billion shillings as the submissions. Yeah.
My question would be, in your Honorable Chair, in your tracking of these ineligible pending bills, there must be officers who are culpable for this, because you are not only looking at the contractors and their claims, you are also looking at officers, either through commission or omission, allowed the claimants of ineligible pending bills. Who is taking responsibility? Who is accountable for this?
The good thing is, as long as it remains a claim, in this case, it means no money has been lost by way of any payment that has been made, isn't it? So the biggest issue, because ineligibility, when I look at the list and I'll share what they're calling ineligible pending bills, the comments they made were largely no supporting documents. And you realize we have two sets of documents. We have the documents which are internally generated by us, which then means we should not punish the supplier on the basis of our documents which you've not put in place, but also there are documents which the supplier ought to have had. So the status of documents is varied and wide, which requires case-by-case study to determine exactly, well, so then what happened. If it is a case whereby all the documents were provided to the supplier, and then
Chair, I'm not in
Honorable
dispute.
Mengech.
I'm not in dispute or disagreeing with the CCM on the basis that no money was lost. But this is a case of trying to defraud the county. So my question would be, who is accountable? Who is responsible for this in an attempt to defraud the county by making erroneous, ineligible, illegitimate claims?
Yes, when you look at most of those projects, the very basic document that is available, there are two scenarios. On most of the documents, it is only the LPO which is in existence. And you understand, by the time you generate an LPO, a process ought to have taken place. But in this case, somebody just generated an LPO and gave it to the contractor. In this case, then the signatories of the LPO, because they did it outside the process, the normal procurement process, ought to be held accountable. On another scenario, some contractors went to site on the basis of an unapproved BQ. They just say they were given a BQ even without an LPO. Nobody has signed, nobody owns up to it. Then he has presented, he has done the one BQ that comes from the county. In this case, you might want to now trace who exactly gave you the BQ, and as a contractor, then how do you just pick up and start work based on a BQ? But on the basis of where there are only LPOs, the signatories of the LPOs are held accountable because there are no minutes for evaluation, there was no tender process and all that. So we can hold the people who issued the LPO unprocedural.
Considering that forgery of documents and such claims are criminal in nature, my chair, my question is, by now, because this issue of pending bills has taken almost 2 years, by now we should have heads rolling. Officers who are trying to defraud the county, and the CCM is not telling this committee who exactly was issuing these LPOs, was issuing this erroneous bill of quantities. You are not telling this committee who exactly is responsible.
Chair,
Honorable Kipkurui.
allow me to come in there.
Honorable Kipkurui.
And I would
Proceed.
I would want to comment that what the CEC is saying, that no money was lost, possibly he would be only referring to no money has been lost from the time he came into office. Otherwise, Honorable Chair, money was lost. And in that pending bills that we are talking about, Honorable Chair, Mbogo Valley ECDE was done poorly. The contractor did shoddy job and did not complete. And even the public works and the health department blacklisted that ECD, and it is not dysfunctional. And just before this government came in, I did indicate to the CEC, then Baliach, that ECD should not be paid. However, Chair, that contractor was paid fully the amount. As we speak now, there is no ECD in Bogomale. So money was lost because we didn't get value for money. So possibly the CEC should be saying, since he took office, money has not been lost, so that he dissociates himself from money lost in the previous government. But money was lost.
CC, before you answer, I think you understand the question. Even in your response, I think Honorable Mengech's issue is, has the department where you head come up with specific names? That is number one, because I'm sure as at the time the task force was doing the report, they were indicating, that's why you have a summary. But has it gone to the point of pinpointing? That is one question. Question number two, as Honorable Chepkon has said, Does your department have the ability to say that money has not been paid, yet if a claim comes that this has been paid, what happens to the same? So that's a question of how much info do you have, how much specific the information is. Because if we say culpable, but without specificity, then it becomes difficult. Proceed.
Chair.
Honorable Fred, as you wait to answer that CEC, Honorable Fred.
Mheshimiwa Chair, nafikiri yangu tu ile maswali nimesikia waziri akisema. Mimi niko na project mbili. Ijaisha na imelipwa. Like Kiminda Water project. Imelipwa na contractor hajamalizia. Ndio ulikuwa na shangaa alitumia nini mpaka akalipa. Halafu niko na Croquet Polytechnic. PQ ya county mzima iko sawa. Lakini contractor alifika katikati akasema hawezi maliza kwa sababu kulikuwa na kasi mingi. Alafu tena ya mwisho, kwa nini PQ ya hii serikali sahihi wakati contractor ameweka ile bei yake, hao waliruhusiwa kwamba wasituoneshe kama MCS ama aoneshe wananchi? Kwa sababu ile PQ ya kitambo, kama ulikuwa umeandika for example mambo ya roofing ni for example it is 10 shillings, lakini kwa hiyo unaletewa ile plan. Alafu baada hiyo contractor atarudi asema kuna mahali inatakana violation wanafanya peke yako bila hata kuambia sisi. Ndio ningependa kuuliza hawa, kwa sababu hawa wanakaa kwa procurement. Hao unafikiri waziri anakaa ndani. Tungependa kuuliza ni sheria gani walitumia, kwa sababu kila kitu lazima iwe transparency. Kama mimi mwananchi angeniuliza kama for example Chaindo dispensary walikuwa wameandika kwamba inatakana stima, inatakana rangi, na hiyo vitu yote ilikuwa imewekwa kwa ile serikali nyingine. Mpaka tukauliza CEO ya kwamba yeye akuja atuambie vile ilikuwa. Yaani baada ya hiyo wanakuja kurudisha the same thing na tumekaa chini kufanya implementation. Ile kitu ilikuwa nauliza, nani alifanya inspection kwa hiyo maji ya Kiminda mpaka pesa ikalipwa na haijaisha? Hata sasa hiyo maji hakuna. Nafikiri madirisha haijawekwa, finishing haijafanywa na mtu ameenda na pesa.
CC, I'm sure now you understand the question speaks to what Honorable Mengej had asked, ineligible pending bills. Honorable Mengej.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chair, sorry. In paid up advertisement in notice to suppliers for works, goods and services with outstanding claims, which is signed by the county secretary somewhere in April, note that any fictitious, forged or double claim shall be treated as an intention to defraud the government, and the same shall be subjected to the due process of the law in the own signature of the county secretary of this government. That is why I'm asking that question.
Honorable Alfred, answer all those concerns one after the other, and you refer to the honorable member so that you can track the responses.
Thank you, Chair. I will start with the Honorable Mengej's question, which basically speaks to the culpability or exactly what action has been taken regarding people who actually contributed to such ineligible pending bills. And I had said before, how the whole process of procurement happens to payment is really everything moves based on somebody's signature. For example, by the time you're signing an LPO, you really ought to have had all the documents following up, even with the evaluation, the professional opinion, the committee minutes, awarding the job and all that, so that by the time you issue an LPO, you're issuing based on a document or based on trust that some due process has been done. All LPOs are signed. The principal people who sign LPOs are chief officers. So in this case, if it is something touching on health, the first culprit, if he signed an LPO without the due process, is the chief officer. Of course, the signatories, other signatories, there's a signatory on the bit of finance in terms of confirming the budget and all that. But the key person would be the presence of an LPO. And therefore, notwithstanding the advertisement that we put up regarding presentation of fake or forged documents, still, of course, we received to the tune of 1.4 billion shillings, we still received submissions. These submissions, we cannot 100% say the things that have been termed as ineligible doesn't necessarily mean it has become an illegality. Ineligibility, there's a thin line between, or well, there's a clear separation between an ineligible bill and a bill which, in this case, we would say an illegal bill. So now perhaps the second step that we should be taking after the Auditor General's report is to delve into the matter of these other submissions to see the ineligibility versus the illegality, because an illegal thing is a case which involves forgery of documents. Ineligible in this case could be cases of incomplete documents. You've seen somebody has presented documents which a due process was done, he did the job, but then the documents are not complete. So in this case, we cannot say it's an illegality. Going further to the process of now confirming whether these are fake or forged documents is really an investigative matter that my office definitely would just refer to the relevant bodies. But the direction I'm getting, so that we don't belabor it, is that we really need to revisit the ineligible. Beyond just declaring them ineligible, I stand guided that we need to delve further into it and separate the issues as they were.
Could you put a timeline to that? Because at the moment you are keen on a timeline. We've been on this issue over and over again. What timeline can you give this particular committee?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So at least since we've now started implementing the report, the first implementation is paying what we're calling clean bills. And we've made a provision for that in the budget. Since this is more of an administrative action on my part, I would actually ask by end of this month, I have a clear way of approaching and dealing with the issues of the illegal pending bills, which I'll require to table before cabinet. So at the earliest opportunity I can get a cabinet to sit down, then I should be able to seek direction, and then we have a report out of it on how we'll deal with the matter. Yes.
Honorable Kipkurui Chepkonya has question, and Honorable Fred. Let us proceed quickly on the same. Let's start with Honorable Kipkurui Chepkonya's question.
Yes, Honorable Chepkonya's question, touching specifically also on his project, which is the Mbogo Valley Dispensary. He confirms that
Mbogo Valley ECD.
ECD, yeah, Mbogo Valley ECD. You confirm that the same has been paid. Number one is really it is possible for finance, looking at the documents, because entirely what we do, we rely on documents from other departments. It's possible for us to pay a bill on the trust or on the confidence of the documents that have been presented to us, the key being an inspection or a completion certificate, which has been signed by both the department, the project manager, and the committee, who say the completion committee person, and we trust that as the status of things. So it could be possible that if something came to that, and I would really want to confirm, it could be possible that a document of that nature or a bill of that nature came in, we looked at the documents, they were complete, we subjected through our examination, all the signatures were in place, and the thing has been paid, when in actual sense, maybe nothing has been done on the ground. But I would want to say that would actually be a very, a serious exception, which in this case then would have to revisit. Thankfully, any payment that happens currently is backed up by all the documents, because the essence of documents is to protect me at finance, sitting at finance. I can't really go out to say, well, you've sent me this completion certificate, can I go and check? I really can't do that on all the projects. Thankfully, I have all the documents intact, touching on whatever payment that has been made. So if it is on a specific or a case-by-case basis, I would want, as a situation, we actually get the paperwork and check the whole chain of people who really convoluted and cooked the entire process to appear like something has been done, to be taken to task. And therefore, on the issue of Mbogo Valley ECD, can I get the status and get back to you tomorrow on the same?
Chair,
with my team can actually dig through the documents.
Chair, I would suggest this.
Honorable Kipkurui.
On the issue of Mbogo Valley, it's going to be a real smack on the face of someone. And Chair, because I've indicated, I cautioned both the finance and the Department of Education that should not be paid. In fact, even the committee of the school, led by the head teacher, Mr. Willie, wrote a letter distancing themselves that they have cleared the contractor from site. However, they proceeded to. So I would suggest then, Chair, if the CEC is willing that we take this route, that matter be taken independently and reported to this honorable house. And that means we must involve the public of Mbogo Valley and the school management, who was supposed to sign off the contractor from site on completion of the work. Because if there is a letter clearing that ECD to be paid, and it is not originating from the committee, it's going to be a rough ride.
Fair enough.
Chairman.
I wanted first an answer to the issue raised by Honorable Fred so that you can come in for the second, because I don't want the loss. You had asked very specific questions. I would want the CC to answer, and then you can come up with the next one. Quickly answer that by
Kwanza
Honorable Fred.
niongezee tu moja ndio angalia.
Honorable Fred.
Mheshimiwa Chairman, kuna njia inatoka inaitwa Singarua Kakuria. In fact hapa imeandikwa paid na hakuna hata kitu imefanywa hapo. In fact wananchi walikuwa wangekuja maandamano last week. Nikapiga kwa CEO nikamwambia hii barabara, akaniambia ati hiyo barabara itatengenezwa. Huyu jamaa anapigiwa simu hakuna. Na ningependa baada ya hii wapeleke waende waangalie. Nafikiri chairman wa roads nilipeleka pale. Tulitembea pale tukaona hakuna kitu imefanywa, lakini tayari imelipwa.
CC Alfred, the concerns that he addressed on that, then I can comment on the same.
Okay, thank you, Chair. On the issue of Mbogo Valley ECD, what I really want to say is that, of course, the fact that that debate is there means that first the contractor was engaged legitimately. So the issue here apparently is on the status of completion or the scope of work. What I just want to say is that sometimes we also need to be clear on the scope of work that was given to the contractor, because we've had instances where a contractor clearly executes what has been shown on the BQ. But since that BQ didn't conclusively cover everything to make that facility operational.
Chair, point of order, Chair.
Honorable Kipkurui.
I would guide that you advise the CC that we've referred this matter to a different date, that he doesn't continue confusing himself. Because Honorable Chair, I've always consistently said, when we refer to specific matters, because I am not new, I am the same MCO was there 2013 to 2017. So when I'm making reference to that, as to the scope of work, I am aware. So, like I said, Chair, and he had committed that we'll make a follow-up after this. Let it rest it at that. We'll revisit.
Honorable Member, thank you for that. I wanted to caution the CC. We cannot be able to address every specific claim. We are following through the major question. And I think these questions arose out of the issue of ineligible pending bill. And I think as long as there's a general concern, when you have such a simple case, it is good to say, that can be noted. You've already given a bit of response. That is enough. And then a follow-up of the same with the individual member, then the House can be responded to differently. That would work because that would save time. So I would want you first to address the issue of Honorable Fred, combine them together. Then I can make a comment on the same, because it was, these questions arose out of the issue of ineligible, illegal pending bills, which you had started answering. Could you proceed to that quickly?
Thank you, Chair. Guided. On Fred's issue, he raised three things. Chaindo dispensary, which we've since come to my office and we've actually discussed, because it appeared the problem was actually at the BQ formulation, where the current BQ spells things which are already done in the previous BQ. And Chair I even admitted to him that we really had issues with our BQs. Our team, either they're overstretched or there might be some level of complacency in terms of preparation of the BQs. And we sought to address that. And we've since published about names of about 34 engineers of different specialties, from the civil engineers, architects, quantity surveyors, structural engineers, which we've shared with departments. And we've advised that going forward, you really don't, since we've engaged these guys in a proper procurement process, you really don't need to insist on using our public works teams when we can actually get better expertise, people who are credible and registered, so that we really get BQs that make sense. Sometimes you get BQs and at the point of implementation, it becomes almost impossible, or they're as confused as he rightfully says. You're saying put electricity when already the electricity was there. So that is a specific case of Chaindo dispensary, but we've since had an engagement with him, and I think he was happy. He came back to my office. He was happy with the intervention that I made. On the issue of the road, the Kiminda, not Kiminda, the Singarua.
Singarua Gakorio.
Yes, it indicates paid. However, I really can't get the date from this report. Let me also revisit this and confirm, because it's possible this is a 17-18. As long as you confirm there's never been any work, because you know a road can be done and it is washed the following week. So there'll be no road, but work was done. But I will follow up on the specific matter also.
Wasiri, unajua nimeenda hata juzi nimekuwa kwa ofisi ya Wasiri kumuuliza, CEO akasema anajua, akampigia simu ashiki. Ndio nilikuwa nafikiria atajalipwa, ndio nimeona sasa amelipwa. Hakuna kitu imefanya mpaka nimepeleka kamati ya barabara mpaka pale.
Which financial year was this?
2017-18.
17-18. Okay.
Proceed, CC.
Yes, thank you. So that is a matter I've just picked up. Same case with the specific issue of the Kiminda Water Project Chair. Allow me to still just get the details and be able to have adequate answers on the same.
Now, CC, I think just to conclude on that matter, what comes out, which I think all the honorable members, if asked, they will raise each specific question. And this is the experience. We have chairs of committees across board here. We have members in those sectoral committees. The biggest concern, which is administrative, which we want you to address too, as well as your head of procurement and supply chain will come at the end of it all to answer the same. One of the major concern, one of the major complaint, every time we invite a sectoral committee, we invite the departments, each of the department has not failed to address this house and say the problem rests with finance. Every single time, the members can confirm to you. That is why you will find, for example, there's that gap. Each of the individual departments will tell you when it comes to project implementation, none of the procurement or the doing of the works concern them per se. You remember sometimes we approved a motion in this house asking for procurement to be done at the individual department. What was the basis of that? It's because we were tired of this issue. Every department comes, they keep saying finance. Every single department. That's why, for example, Honorable Kipkuri would tell you, I met the CC education and raised my concern. Each of them will always come back and say, our hands are tied. If it comes to procurement, if it comes to payment, it is finance. And if you remember, even the ad hoc committee, you are the last to come in. When it comes to the Auditor General reports, you are the last to come in because everything is lumped at your doorstep. Now, that can only point of a simple case of administrative failure. Who is speaking the truth? How comes all the departments are ganging up, laying the blame in you? Number two, a payment can be made where the blame would lie with your department and not with the line department. As you've already told us, the LPO is signed by the chief officer. So how comes they would come disown and say, it was not us, it was not on us? What is the solution your department can give? Then the issue of procurement at the department level will come at it at the last. But that first, the reason you are answering questions touching on different departments is because of that. Can you address the house on that specific administrative issue and the best step going forward? Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I'd really wish to really, so that I absorb, I would request that the head of supply chain just takes us through how the procurement process goes, because you then realize it is decentralized, and that whenever a department comes on a matter touching on procurement and blames finance, either this house has scared that person or feels they do not want to take responsibility and that finance can be blamed for it. I would just request that you allow the head of supply chain to just...
I will allow him at the last bit when he'll be answering that question, but you know you are the administrative head.
Yes.
I wanted you to speak for your department because Honorable Mengech is coming with the next question. That was the general answer to that concern, just that. The head of supplies will have his time on the same.
Okay, thanks. Then, Chair, what I would say is that number one, there's been massive capacity issues at the department to really own up and to take it upon themselves to be responsible for their processes on matters touching on finances. The truth of the matter is I come at the tail end as finance. What I've done is I've decentralized functions. I have a procurement officer across each department. I have an accountant across each department, and they don't take instructions from me. I've given them, administratively, they're managed at the department. Functionally, I'll come in if they need any technical expertise.
Is there a write-up to that effect that instructs the individual chief officer that we are seconding so-and-so staff?
Yes, of course. It is the deployment is done by the chief officer finance, giving them exactly who to report to and their duties and the records in case things are not moving there. So, but when we come to actually the point that has been raised in this house on why we shouldn't decentralize the house, I'd want once you give him a chance, he'll be able to carry us through.
Honorable Mengech, quickly. Honorable Terry, what is it?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I wanted to add something, a question on the issue of legible and illegible bills. We have these projects, mainly a pollution blocks, that the contractors did. They don't have any documents. The projects can be seen and are working. Some of them are locked because they cannot allow to be used before their fate is decided. There are those who would like to demolish and take their materials. I would like to know what the finance CC will say about that.
I would want the CC not to answer that because it will come after the questions Honorable Mengech is supposed to ask, because part of those findings were documented in the task force. The assembly considered them. We gave recommendations. One of such issues, I think Honorable Terry, you are here before the floor of the House. You have specific examples. Please indicate that somewhere so that you don't forget. Honorable Mengech.
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Speaker, I also have an issue.
Let me first give Honorable Mengech and then you can come in, please. Okay. Honorable Pius, you'll be given the chance. Honorable Mengech, quickly.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Like to ask position of the county government on we have around 4 reports on pending bills. The first one, of course, is the task force report. It was constituted by the governor around in 2017. And then, based on that, the report was brought to the county assembly. The report, the speaker committed the same to the Pick and Pack committee, and report was tabled here on 12th April. I mean, it was approved, and the same was forwarded to the executive. Another report is the Auditor General's report on pending bills. And then, apparently, there is a special pending bills report where you paid 4 million shillings. And on 2nd July, I sought a statement from your office regarding payment of pending bills. In your response, you said it was not possible to use the special pending report to pay pending bills. And you said you needed to corroborate the same with the task force report. Based on your own responses, which report are you going to base your payments on? Now that we passed the supplementary budget, we gave you some money to pay the pending bills. So which report will be the basis of paying these pending bills?
CC.
Thank you, Chair. For starters, the report that we use to pay the pending bills is the one that has been presented to this House and approved, which is the task force report. Because when you look at the report, the Auditor General's report, what they actually say is pay upon doing further internal procedures or further processes to verify that indeed it is a legitimate bill. In this case, they disown or they absolve themselves of any responsibility that shall arise if we pay bills based on their report. They always give a disclaimer that, however, the position of the payment is still determined by the internal processes involving the chief officers and all the processes. But to just give the history, Honorable Mengech, is that when the new government came in office, the first thing that we did, that was in August of 2017, we wrote to the Auditor General to help us do the verification of the pending bills. So they said then that they didn't have a budget. They had to seek budget from the National Treasury for them to deploy an auditor. But then that meant it was going to take a process because the National Treasury had to do a supplementary. So immediately then we then decided to constitute the pending bills, the task force report, which as they were executing their mandate towards the end of it, the Auditor General wrote back, said they'd availed a CPF firm to come and actually do the verification, but it was contracted by them. And that is why we paid the Auditor General 4 million shillings, which then they were to transmit to the particular CPF firm. So since we had already engaged the process, we said this then will be a value add. They'll come and look at our pending, our task force report. And part of our submissions to that team was still the task force report. So when they went, when they came and did their work, they were able to give us schedules upon schedules of the same things that the task force report had filed, but still the report was really non-committal. It still was non-committal, so that it was really unimplementable. The comments were just pending further verification. These are a bill that needs to be paid pending further verification. So then that took us back to the legitimate to the task force report. But then when now we are done and wanted to implement the task force report, there was now the general deployment of auditors by the National Treasury to all the counties, because I think there were about 15 counties which had made requests. So we now got the second tranche of auditors, which is now the last audit report, which is the basis of even the discussion that has even brought all these issues with the National Treasury and all that. So for us, the crux of the matter is these reports are informative in the way the report, in the framing of those items are concerned. But the bottom line is, our first implementation, we will implement the task force report. Any other matter that shall arise outside the special audit and outside the task force report, and perhaps what the Auditor General had a contrary opinion, we will subject to, and that is on a case-by-case basis, we will subject to the pending bills committee, which then means that is something they can prosecute. But initially, for us, we were satisfied. We didn't even have a use for the pending bills committee, because we felt the task force report was conclusive and serves our purpose. But then in the interest of...
Allow me, Chair, to cut him short. Waziri, using your own words, the task force report was adequate. You went ahead to commit public funds amounting to 4,012,000. You went ahead. The task force report was adequate. This county assembly, which is the supreme organ of the county government, adopted the task force report with recommendations. You went ahead to commit public money, 4 million shillings, for a special audit. And yet, in your own words, you have said internal mechanisms were recommended by the Auditor General's office. I don't know whether that one was prudent enough, Chair.
See, and I think, in answering that, you should understand the concern. Did we have to go through all those? Because the task force was a creation of the county government. The assembly, in its wisdom, agreed with the task force and gave our recommendations. In fact, went further to give recommendations where the task force was not sure. I can give an example. The task force was of the opinion that it's up to the county executive to see what they can do with a case of a project done, but no documentation. The assembly, for us, we went further and said, we can think of a solution. Why don't we do a form of a mediation or arbitration? You call upon the contractor and then rope in the control of budget. So as at when the task force report was adopted by the assembly, what was so difficult, and it has taken all these years, that we are forcing the hand of Treasury to blacklist the county. The damage done for the last 1 week is so significant that you sure, despite our efforts, which we are actually doing now, and what I'm sure you guys were in Treasury last week, now you are here before us. What was so difficult? That is the main concern. Why did we have to go around until we pay the Auditor General and still say we are not sure about them? Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. When you look at the scope of work, and the Auditor General, we wrote to him, when you look at the scope of work, it was not limited to just whether to pay or not to pay. There were a number of other advisory issues that we really wanted them to guide us on, especially touching on internal controls. And I would wish to maybe to present to this House the scope of work that we had asked the Auditor General to do, which was beyond the verification and confirmation of eligible or ineligible pending bills. It touched on a number of things, and that was the first. We're referring to the first Auditor General's deployment, not the second one, the first one. The scope really was wider than just verifying the pending bills, and we wanted advisory as Treasury on that. But nonetheless, there was, when you look at the time lags between when we finally had the final task and them, and it was already a contractual obligation, so we had to get them proceed, give us further value add based on the input of also what the task force had said. So therefore, we have a task force. Can we now start the Auditor General's two concurrent obligations that we had? So it was not possible to then stop this when already we had not concluded another process, as it were. Yeah. And so, Chair, to really 2018, you remember, we actually had a budget that was in existence. The first thing we came, so as it were, it was actually the advice of even the House that we really were not going to pay for things that we really didn't know, because already there was a budget when we came in. The feeling even of this House chair for us to have gone into supplementary was we need to hit the ground running. So we reallocated the funds which were already in the system, which would have actually gone to pay the pending bills, into new projects, which understandably I know we really wanted to start building our legacy, or to start doing our own projects as MCS and all. And therefore we came up with a supplementary which totally overhauled the original budget. But had we implemented the budget that we found, as it were, then we wouldn't be having this issue of the pending bills. But then, of course, now subsequently, after the Auditor General's and the task force report has been out, attempts have been made, and the first year that we really made substantial attempts at settling the pending bills was the last financial year, 18-19. The plan was we spread the 420 million over a 3-year period. So we had some payments that we made in 18-19 on the few projects that are captured in the task force report. And then in 19-20, the plan was we also provide substantially. And the budget had 146 million, which in last week's supplementary, we've enhanced to 250 million shillings. Then that takes us to, we will only be leaving a balance of about 50 million shillings.
The last financial year, what was the figure?
We paid, we had committed, I think, about 80 million, though we didn't pay everything. We paid, because you see, payment is on a case-by-case basis. The first item we paid was the slaughterhouse.
So how much did you pay in total last financial year? Out of the 80 that you had committed?
We paid only 20 million.
You only paid 20?
We paid 20 million. And then now we have that is 20, right? About 20, yeah? Yes, 20. The slaughterhouse, 15 million, and the dispensary, yes. And then now we've enhanced it in this budget. So then, in essence, what the advice and the principle here is first in, first out. All the projects, or in the current year, we will really not even pay a current project that has fallen due without first paying the historical pending bill. So it is taking first charge. So the fact is, the 250 million shillings will actually have to be paid before we even pay anything that is current. Therefore, by the end of this financial year, if all cash flows come as anticipated, then we'll only be left with about 50 million thereabouts to clear the pending bills matter. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, just before I conclude my statement, on this issue of task force report, the approval was on 12th April. The county executive went ahead to commit Oberia and company certified public accounts on 20th. That is a week after. And the firm was paid 4,110 shillings 860. I don't know whether this is an indictment of the county assembly and your own task force report.
On the same note, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Cynthia.
Before he responds, in his submission orally just a few minutes ago, he admitted that the task force report as passed by the county assembly on 12th, they were going to be the basis of their payment. And again, Honorable Chair, as Honorable Mengech has put it, the CEC Finance has submitted that they got the office of the Auditor General to be able to do another audit of these particular pending bills. And he goes ahead and said that office is the one that brought in the company that was paid by the executive, the Oberia. Now, Honorable Chair, I would want to understand, he did not mention that he paid the Oberia. He mentioned that it was the Auditor General. Honorable Chair, I want a clarification on this. I might not be having adequate knowledge on procurement and payment and finance. So, Honorable Chair, I want a clarification on that.
Honorable Pius.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My first question is that I've been given a list here, a document, which I was trying to go through. Maybe the first question is whether this list is exhaustive on all the pending bills. When I talk of exhaustive, I know we have historical pending bills and also pending bills from 2017-18. Secondly, I have an issue on what I know better and this is on the historical projects which are in my ward. One of them is Amani Market, which was a flagship project. So it was started way back around 2016. Okay, what happened with this project is that it never appeared in task force report, but instead in the first year's main budget, it was appearing, the money was allocated around 5 million, and nothing was done for that first year. And then the following year, the same money was rebudgeted, 5 million plus. The whole entire year, then nothing was done about it. And then came this financial year, 2019-2020. It was taken back to pending bills, and we were not told where that money, which was allocated, when. It was never rebudgeted, but it has been taken back to pending bills. I'm surprised because I have not seen it anywhere here in the pending bills report which you have been given. Another issue is on water projects, which according to a task force report, had been paid to a different contractor, not the contractor which was given the work to do. That is according to pending bills. That is Surungai water project. While I was asking about it around 3 months ago, I was told the person who was actually doing the job had been paid. That is, the company had been paid. I was not told whether the money was returned by the company which had been erroneously paid. So that is one thing I would want to know. Lastly, I've never seen any project on ECD. I have a number of them on historical pending bills, but I have not seen it anywhere. So my suggestion, that is the last one, is to know whether we can have all the list of projects which are in historical pending bills and they're actually supposed to be paid, and even those which have been paid. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Those are my questions.
CC, as you answer the same, I think you understand why the question comes in through the said reports. You've confirmed, and I would want you to repeat the same. Are you confirming that the list you'll be using to make payments is the task force report?
Yes, Chair.
So that can be affirmed that the task force report would be your basis of payments.
Yes.
And as you answer that question, remember you had mentioned to us 420 and 324. There's still a glaring miss about 324. The question by Honorable Pius still touches on historical. Most members have been asking on historical. If you are going to refer to the task force report, remember the task force report touched mostly on the historical, but it doesn't take away the issue of our pending bill, which is 324, which I don't think is documented in any report. That should also come in your response on how we are seeking to pay that. I don't think the special audit was touching on our current pending bill, 1819, 1718, 1819, because that was current. And I'm happy you mentioned in your submission that you are aware of. The department can own, so it doesn't need a task force to confirm. Task force was basically to confirm historical, but proceed on the same queries.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to answer, to really clarify that is, I first made a distinction between what is a pending bill and a work in progress. Work in progress, to me, even if work has been done and we've not come all the way to the level of completion certificates and the documentation, still that doesn't qualify to be a pending bill. And therefore, when you talk of 324, I'm saying things which, if we had money now, we can pay ready within our.
But that is work already done. It just
yes.
All
work done.
Documentation complied.
Yes.
Work done.
Yes.
Payment certificate issued.
Yes.
It's about payment.
Yes.
Now, I think part of the reason we called you is for you to break it down to us, because we sought to know the information. At the same time, you'll have a responsibility to explain how that needs to be paid. Because so far so good, you've been laboring to explain how we'll pay the historical. But if we pay historical and we forget current pending bills, don't you think it still eats into our money? It also eats into the goodwill with the contractor. But you'll answer that. You'll have to give us what do we do with the 324. Because in the National Treasury report, they touched on the same, touching on our own pending bill.
Chair.
And before I can allow Honorable Kipkurui Chepkwony, you have to clarify, Honorable Fred.
Correct.
I don't know where he's always been raising that issue on the floor of the House every single time. I think it is good you put to rest the issue about the money that we inherited from the previous, because we came in mid-financial year. The money that had been allocated for the pending bills. You had just mentioned it, but I would want you to come clear, because the allegation that has always been flying on the face was that funds forwarded, it has come almost thrice at the floor of the House. Funds forwarded from 1617 to 1718 amounted to 759,114,471. And this one, I think, was served to us by the contractors before. And this was based on a certificate of bank balance, I think our CRF account, I assume, 24th July 2017, 759. You had just mentioned it, but I would want it to be on record what became of this, because it had been allocated. It was in our budget. We have previously had two cases of two information, one 670 million, the other 759. I'm more inclined to believe in this 759. It had been allocated, but what happened to the same? That one you have to address to that. Proceed.
Chair. Chair, let me pick from where you've left, because I'll still go back to the 104, the disputed amount between the county government and the OAG. And from where now you've left, Honorable Chair, if the CEC can be able to take us through clearly, he indicated in his talk that the money that had been allocated for pending bills in 1718, when we came to the supplementary budget, we didn't take all the amount of money to start work for Tugatai government now. There was an amount that was left for the pending bill. So, Chair, can the CEC be able to say, out of the amount that had been budgeted for pending bill, 759, which you've alluded to, when the task force team sat, which was said by Governor Sang, sat, which was led by Kiboi, sat, they cleared an amount, I think it was about 424 million. And that's why they scaled down from 759 to 670 million. Now, for the 424, when the county assembly sat and looked through that report, we took in the comments that have been made by a member here, that Honorable Teresa Mayo, some of the projects that have been completed but had no documentation, and some which had been paid and there was no work. Anyway, to avoid going into that detail, how much money in the 1718 out of pending bill of 759 million, with or without the supplementary budget, how much were we able to pay? Then that which we were able to transition to 1819. And in 1819 now, bulking with balances from 1718, how much have we been able to pay? Because the basis for the circular from Treasury was failure to show that we are an attempt to clear our pending bills. But this attempt would be now to say we had a pending bill of this value. We have been able to pay value. Why? A total percentage of this much. So that the CEC can be able to tell us, because where I'm taking us is, I would want to know our current position now, with the pending bills emanating from 15-16 this far. How much do we owe the suppliers? And with the supplementary budget that we just passed the other day, are we able to pay off all the pending bills? Or we will still have pending bills, and now there is this what we are calling work under or work in progress. How much would we? Because we need to know what is our debt portfolio moving forward. Thank you.
CC, so many questions, one by one. Refer to them.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, those are many questions. Just as a general comment before I go to the specifics, is that with the issue of the pending bills, and you had asked, Chair, that you are not sure of the 324 million shillings. When you look at our budget, even the latest, the supplementary, is that there is a line of pending bills and a line of work in progress. Work in progress definitely is works that are still ongoing, touching on 17-18 and 18-19, which this house would easily call pending bills. But I just made a distinction of pending bills being those ones we've not been able to pay and they're complete. So if you want to look at the debt portfolio in terms of the commitments that the county has to pay, because commitments arise when we've already entered into a contractual commitment and then works have been done or ongoing, which means that it brings a financial obligation on our part, then we would have to add the works in progress and what we are calling pending bills. So the 250 million that we have for pending bills and the works in progress totaling, my team is working on it on the budget so that we confirm exactly what figure or how much the county is owed in terms of.
So the 250 speaks to the 324.
Speaks to
does not speak to the historical.
No, the 250 speaks to the 420. It is historical.
So my question was on 324 on because that is our own.
On the 324, when you add the 324 is already part of what we have inside us work in progress.
But CC, you've made us understand those are two different items. Work in progress is work still ongoing. Until that person concludes work, a payment certificate is issued. Pending bills, as you've made us aware as we started this session, is work complete, payment certificate issued. In fact, it is us who owe the contractors.
Yes.
So in your submission, 324, I assumed you refer to pending bill, which means those are work complete, we have not paid.
Yes, correct. And how these arose, Chair, so that I explain the disparity between how that was picked and our budgeting is that 324, we're actually picking items from the Auditor General's report, which touch on our financial years, which we had already provided for in the budget as work in progress. But according to them, by the time they were doing the audit, it was actually a legitimate pending bill. But on our case,
you confirm it is a pending bill now?
It is a pending bill.
So 324, as we speak, is work complete, not paid?
Yes, as per the documents we have. And those are things which actually, as a good and a substantial amount of it, actually either is being paid or was paid from July 1st, Chair, to 31st October. Part of those items which still the Auditor General had captured as pending bills, we've actually been able to pay about 600. The figure goes to 629 million shillings. When you look at the report, and I would wish to just make reference to, so that I just wanted to demonstrate to this house that we are paying. In the report that Honorable Mengech tabled, it showed that we've paid 320 million shillings, 320, 114, 388. That is what they reported. But when we gave them our correct position, we actually gave them 625 million shillings, 819, 018. So that is an increase of about another 300 million shillings, which had been actually classified as pending bills. But in our case, we processed between July and now with the little resources that came in from October.
See, I think now for the purposes of, because you are the people in charge.
Yes.
The question that I think you would want to help us understand as we speak today is on 3rd of December, 2019. So if we are to speak about the situation as we speak now, financial year, let's say 17-18, 18-19, and up to where we are on 19-20, can you be able to come up with a specific figure of pending bills? A figure that you will classify as a department is pending bill, not work in progress. Can you be able to classify for us, this is the amount? That will now go to the question Honorable Kipkuri Chepkonyo was asking. Could you authoritatively say how much? Pending bill meaning work done. As of today.
Yes, Chair, that is absolutely possible because
what is
the 17, well, I don't have the figure, we just need to compile to put together, but largely you'll realize things that relate to 17-18, for example, the ECDs, as and when they failed you, we've actually paid. There is a small percentage, and that is what exactly you're asking for. Things which are ready and claims have actually been brought to us, awaiting funding.
So is it
pick
something we
that,
can get before the closure of this session?
before
have a
the
big
end
team.
before the end of day, because that means this team has to dash to the office to
We
just work
assume by
out.
the time you came here, you have a clear statement.
Well,
Because last week you were at Treasury. I'm sure you had the answers for that.
but this is just something we pull out of our system and we can provide before close of day. And but that will then break work in progress, and what you're saying will give you the, in essence, we are breaking the items that we've classified as work in progress to either show clearly what is work in progress and what is complete and is ready for payment, if I understand what you're saying.
Provide the other answers quickly to the honorable members, each one of them that had been asked.
Chair, just a quick one.
Honorable Kipkurui.
If you were to address a primary 3 kid on the simple difference between pending bill and work in progress, if I am to say pending bill is work done in the last financial year, not the current financial year, would I be right?
Are you asking as a question, Honorable Kipkurui?
Yes, it's a question because I am seeing a very senior member here, Honorable Cynthia Muge, who's a planner, cannot be able to differentiate. He's asking the wrong person, Honorable Gideon, who is just a physicist.
Would you answer that question just in in 20 seconds?
Okay, Cynthia, kindly take a pen. Just give a definition. Okay. Pending bill in simple terms is commitments and works have been done and they have been invoiced in the system, meaning there's satisfaction that the works were complete. The only thing stopping us from paying is unavailability of funds. So then it becomes a pending bill because whereas it has been invoiced, ideally we are not able to pay because of basically the issues of cash flows. But strictly speaking, to really address Honorable Chepkwany's issue is that our pending bills has arisen largely because of, and it cuts across, the unmet revenue targets. So that we're saying in the financial year, say 17-18, we projected maybe 300 million or 400 million our own source revenue. We committed the works. And ordinarily you find that we absorb recurrent almost to about 95% recurrent votes, which then leaves us with a leeway in the event that we have a shortage in on-source revenue. Where do we plug in, which leaves us to development. So you find we've committed works of 500 million, which we budgeted as on-source revenue, but we end up collecting 200 million. So you have 300 million of commitments, but there's no money. So that is also legitimate. That's a pending bill arising. We are unable to pay because we have a huge deficit in our budget that arose as a result of unmet revenue target. So that becomes a pending bill. But then the general rule is that any unmet or any deficits in the previous year is made good in the current financial year. And that is why the first projects that will take a hit in an attempt by us to correct this pending bills issue is the current projects. We will not commit because the moment we start the procurement process, it means that those will be commitments. We will not commit anything for 1920, save for conditional grants, until we've cleared the pending bills. That is to give us a cushion in the event that we are not able, number one, gives us a cushion to correct historical budget deficits, because when you analyze from 17-18, we had a deficit of about 180 million. 18-19, we had another deficit of about 150. So in essence, we are carrying forward a deficit of about 400 million shillings of committed works, but we did not get that revenues. So the only way to correct is in the current financial year. And since the rule that applies is FIFO, that is first in, first out, then what you're saying is we'll hold all the projects, and that is what even national government does. If it can't borrow, you hold current commitments until you've cleared. And that is what, in essence, the supplementary tried. For us to have gotten to 250 million, we cut down on the current projects. And even so, even if we have those projects on the budget, it doesn't mean that it is only a figure in the budget. But as long as we've not sorted the issue of the pending bills, then we cannot really...
Chair, the CEC Finance is...
Honorable Gideon?
Is trying to scare us away from this room. And,
Honorable Alfred, I think the answer
you
was
are
very
saying
simple.
that you want to tell us that even there was no need for doing that supplementary then, because in a nutshell we did a supplementary, did away with some projects, leaving some. But from what you are saying right now is like you were saying that there will be nothing to be done except those projects. I think now from I can deduce from what you have said that it is only those projects that are running currently that will proceed. Then what was the need of having an allocation of 4.2 million for Nandi Hills for other project
Honorable Mengech.
in the current financial year?
Chair.
Maybe the
Honorable
CCM,
Mengech.
maybe the CCM can confirm to us whether the budget is a discretionary document, whether it's a free hand for the executive to decide what to do with it based on what the Gideon is asking.
Honorable Kipkurui, I could hear you. Quickly.
Yeah, Honorable Chair. Clearly, the one thing that we hate about the CEC is that he's very frank, but sometimes his choice of words cannot be that which is palatable. However, he has said it, that for what I was seeking. Now that addresses the question I was asking. That what would be our balance debt moving forward, and what is the scenario of our budget? What is the implication of debt vis-a-vis the a budgeted amount for development this financial year? And he has answered it. He has said, just to be clear, that out of the supplementary which we approved a few days ago, we have availed 250 million to pay the pending bills. However, there is a golden rule, which is not golden, it is the rule in the PFM Act, that first in, first out. That is why I was asking, what then is our bulk debt moving backwards? The total amount that we are owed, amount that we have paid, what we are yet to pay, and he has said we are running a risk of not being able to implement what we have budgeted for in the budget. Because unless we are able to clear our pending bills satisfactorily to allow the Treasury to open the expenditure on our budgeted amount for development, we are not moving nowhere. I think that is the statement he said. I said he doesn't have the right words, but that's what he said. So, Honorable Gideon, it is not a scare. It is the reality that Honorable Mengech said, let us invite the CEC to be able to tell us. I would want to buy that.
CC, before you can respond, does it mean then we've been very imprudent? And when given a responsibility as a public official, don't you think, and these are a malay that starts from the national government, can we say then we borrowed the disease from the Jubilee government at the national level, where we just throw figures around? The same thing. We have a 2.7 trillion, but there's no money to fund that, a whole deficit of 900 billion. So I'm happy you're speaking the truth. And I remember when the budget was being considered, the complaint was, we only have work in progress and pending bills. And that is the reality. And now you're a public official. The same will be asked of you 4 or 5 years down the line. That what was the need therefore for giving a projection that from experience cannot be met. Number two, the county system, in as much as it is said to be independent and have ability to operate, but you can confirm, you are the finance people, have we ever got 100% of what we are allocated yearly? Has that been a case any year that we can say Nandi County was given this development? Have we ever been given that amount? If we get 60, you thank God. So why then would we budget? Why would we go further and give a promise? Why would we do public participation and promise people that will be done? But in reality, it is not. Worst of it all, now we have a clear directive that nothing will be paid unless we finish with the pending bill. And you said very well that as long as it has been invoiced, there's nothing you can do. That has to be paid. The same CRF account we speak to is the same one account. It has been invoiced. It is expected the pay to be done. Just answer that with all honesty.
Thank you, Chair.
And I can confirm to you that you are protected. You are protected. When you appear before this house,
thank you,
you are protected. Proceed.
Thank you for the protection, Chair. And I'm grateful that we are all beginning to appreciate the situation we are in. We really cannot operate as a first world county in a third world or a fourth world country like Kenya, where already the messes are too much, and therefore, as we discuss, let's be real on the issues. To just first start with what you asked about 100% disbursements. This is how, Chair, it works. Whereas we get 100% disbursements, there is always a 3-month period which is always locked out of the system. So, for example, by June, by the time we are talking of June, towards the financial year, we will be getting maybe disbursements for the month of March. And then in July, when we cross the financial year, they'll give us 3 months, disbursements. The IFMI system for development is locked, and then they'll tell you, keep your salary, keep the money for salaries for the 3 months, because for the month of July, end of August, and end of September, we'll not get any funds. So they've given us 100%, yes. But in essence, we cannot use it for development, because in those 3 months, we have to pay salaries. The first disbursement will come maybe in October. So as a result, even if we wanted to pay the pending bills, the codes, the IFMIS codes for development are opened past October. So these are a way of, they will announce very well that they've given us 100%, but they don't mention the trick they've applied for the 3 months to squeeze the liquidity out of us. So yes, we are caught in a situation, we say yes to Mepewa. Then what happened? We were not able to pay. We had to, actually, it always comes in form of a communication that keep for 3 months salary pending finalization of the Finance Act and the process of disbursement and the division of the CARA and all that happening. So yes, we get 100%, but I can say we get for 9 months. What we are able to apply in any given financial year is a 9-month disbursement. The interesting thing is the schedule is tailored in such a way that in the beginning, in the formative years, in the formative months, the disbursements are low. But in the last 3 months, you find they're significantly higher. But then now you're locked to use it just for purposes of salaries and maybe a few recurrent items. So yes, it is true we are given the full, but that is how the framework works. And therefore, every 3 months, we just have to reserve. We have to carry forward a 3-month amount to the next financial year. On the issue of you raised about, and that is what Honorable Mengech mentioned also, whether really the budgeting, I mean, is just something we are not to honor. Chair, what I attempted to tie was the budget vis-a-vis cash flows. There is what we have as budgeted figures, but then there is the actual figures or actual translation of what is in the budget into money. And other than that scenario that I've just given, Chair, is that and the 2 scenarios I've given, both of the shortfall in revenues, our on-source revenues, and you find the National Treasury, for them, the truth is they've always carried a huge deficit, which in their line, they've always called it, they always use it as a domestic borrowing, for example. So every time it has increased consistently. They present a budget which appears balanced, but the truth is, if we were to be honest, our budget, our National Treasury budget has never balanced. For us, we've only done it for 2 years. We've lied to ourselves, Chair, for 2 years. The first estimate was 385 million. We collected 197.
Okay.
The second estimate was 459.
Point of order, Honorable Chair. Point of order, Honorable Chair.
Wait, let the CC finish.
No, point of order, Chair.
Let him, he is giving a figure, then you can come.
Point of order, Chair.
I will not give you until CC finishes that statement. The second year?
Yes, the second year, out of a budget of 459 million, we collected 286 million shillings. So we said in the third year, we would rather be a bit reasonable in terms of the interventions that we've made. We made an initial estimate of 385 million shillings, which from our, because we wanted to say we just have to be as real as possible, because already that's a deficit we've carried forward, a deficit in our own 2 years, that's a deficit of about 400 million. We made a reasonable estimate of 385, though we've had to adjust it upwards in the supplementary, Chair. And again, I can assure you,
don't you think it's another measure? Like, you really want to convince yourself that they balance. Why did you have to change again, yet you said you wanted to be realistic at 385? Why again push upwards and come with another deficit again?
Number one, Chair, I really, I was relying on
Honorable
the House of,
Chepkwony.
okay.
Chair, we are very keen listening to the CEC, and the spirit of being frank has just gotten into him. But when he says we lie to ourselves, I think, Chair, it needs to be very clear on who lied to who. Now that he's very frank, just come out clean again on that.
Proceed, because you're answering the question. And I'm more keen why you would still revise upwards, yet you said you are realistic at 385. Why change again? Same problem. Now the lying now will now be Alfred lied to himself.
Yes.
Proceed.
When I looked at Chair, when we made the when we did the Finance Act, of course, which came way after the budgeting, the estimate, the 629 million shillings, in our opinion, is still realistic in terms of one of the major sources of revenue. And in the finance bill, we revised the land rates to 2,000 shillings. We determined that if we are to invoice, we've actually been getting about 14 million shillings from the land rates guys. But we determined that with the passage of the Finance Act, which I would request Chair understand the same has not been done, it would mean that from the multinationals, we should be able to collect something of about 150 million shillings. Health, we've realized there's a lot of money from NHIF, which we've not done, especially things to do with user compensation for user fees and all those items. We determined that health can give us almost another 200 million shillings. And therefore, Chair, to get to, if we consolidate our efforts, even with the assistance of this House in passing the Finance Act before they go on recess, so that, because land rates are usually paid in December, we will still be able to get somewhere close to 500 million shillings, Chair. So there's only 100 million shillings, which was to cushion things. But the truth of the matter is, there are interventions, especially if the Finance Act was to be passed, the interventions that we've made to ensure that we hit somewhere close to that. But the spirit...
Honorable Chair, looking at the responses from the CCM Finance, I would request that we stick to this matter on pending bills, and then we can have time for that. For example, the 150 million from the multinationals. We know we have a court injunction. We've not been able to get that money for the last, this is the second year? This is the second year?
That's a matter of cess, Chair. The 150 is on land rates.
Land rates. Yeah. Yes, land rates and the cess. We need a cess. And looking at the honesty of the CCM Finance during this session, Honorable Speaker, I've always raised the issue of projection of revenue. And of course, we have never agreed on this. Like the first half year, ending 31st December last year, we only managed to raise 86 million. If you double that, that is hardly 200 million. I believe, Honorable Chair, we would be on chasing a marriage if we talk about 500 million, when we can project 2 years behind. No, not project, when we can look at back 2 years and realize that we cannot even manage 200 million based on the so many factors. So, Honorable Chair, that would require a whole session. So I would request that we...
Agreed. I think we'll let's stick to pending bill so that in the interest of time, because we really need to wind it up quickly. Did you answer there was that question that I think, thanks to different questions, you didn't conclude on that. CC, finish on that before I can give the next person quickly, as we want to wind up.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, the questions have been many. There was what Mheshimiwa Murray raised, which I'd wanted to confirm, that he was asking that he's not seeing the list, but unfortunately it's out. He's not seeing.
I think on the specifics we had said, you can be able to address them individually.
I wanted to refer him to the task force report. A money market is actually on page 287. 327, a money market is listed as eligible, recommended for payment, and therefore, and any other specific matter that has been raised on that. On the issue of 759, the balances that we brought forward from first, on the issue of whether we paid Obiria or how comes we paid Obiria and how we procured. The truth is we did not pay Obiria. We have documents to confirm we paid the Auditor General. The auditor sent is Obiria and Company, yes, but then it is the Auditor General that hired Obiria and Company. The communication they sent to us is that they were going to use consultants.
Kindly ensure in your submissions after this, you attach the same.
We'll provide evidence. We paid the Auditor General. And then, still on the same question of why then, I mean, Honorable Mengage gave us a chronology of events, the point we tabled the report and the point we engaged the auditor. I had mentioned, Chair, that we had already started the process of engaging the auditor, only that it came way after. Already the process was ongoing. And I said the terms, and part of what I said we'll submit is the terms of reference of the Auditor General. And then when the task force came about, of course, I was only happy to give it as part of the input, because the Auditor General had actually mentioned that any other internal document that is available for perusal by the Auditor General in order to make an informative decision. So any other internal document then was the task force report. And further to just determining the figures, there were other recommendations on the internal controls and all the other matters, which were very useful to us. So to me, it has actually been very useful. In fact, if I'm to rank, the task force report is the most useful in determining the payments, but Obiria's report is useful in determining structures that need to be put in place for an efficient running of a finance function. And we adopted the recommendations as a department and circulated the same. 759 million shillings, the balances we brought forward from the previous year. As we look at what we brought forward as actual cash, we also need to look at what we brought forward as deficits in terms of unmet revenue targets. And I just wanted to mention how the budgeting had gone, Chair. In 2013, 2014, in 2014, 2015, as I look for the other figure, the on-source revenue budget was 472 million shillings. They collected 200 million shillings. In 15-16, they had budgeted 357 million shillings. They collected 219 million shillings. In 16-17, they budgeted 362 million shillings. They collected 244 million shillings. So that gives us a deficit of about 520 million shillings in terms of a deficit of funds that had been committed, because their budget was fully committed, as it were. So whereas we brought forward 759, we also need to be cognizant of a big hole of about 520 million shillings. But however, Chair, our budgeting system is cash basis, so that every financial year, whatever has been brought forward, we just recognize it in the budget as other sources of revenue. So
you can confirm what was brought forward was 759?
Yes.
But with a bill of 520?
That is a deficit. That is what we're saying is a hole in the budget, so that if we were to match cost and expenses. But what I want us to focus mostly, so that we really don't split the hairs, is if we're referring to 759 million shillings, we budget the 759 together with the other revenues and appropriate afresh. So when you look at our 17-18 budget,
clarity.
Yes.
Just a bit of clarity.
Yeah, clarity
Yes.
on that. You talk of this deficit of 520 million. Deficit based on uncollected revenue, deficit based on non-remittance from the treasury, or what?
No, uncollected on-source revenue. Uncollected
Did you
on-source
refer
revenue.
purely to our own source revenue?
That is on-source revenue.
Okay, proceed.
So, Chair, but when you come to the 17-18 budget, clearly you can see income versus expenditure. So you cannot really isolate the 759 million shillings and say, what did it do, when you can see there is an exchequer release of 5.1 billion. There is brought forward balances of 759 million, and then there are the conditional grants of this much, and then the expenditure.
See, do you guys normally raise these issues in the IBEC? Because I'm just wondering, as a CEC Finance, you are literally being given a skunk to deal with. Honorable Gideon, I will give you a chance. Gideon, I will give you a chance, just a bit. I'm more concerned about that bit where you are given, what the public knows is that you've been given 5.1. So I don't know if you as a CEC Finance, when you sit in the IBEC, when you guys are invited in the IBEC, does the same issue arise? Because that one will apply across every country, across every of the counties. Honorable Gideon?
So you are confirming that when we came in, actually we had a balance brought forward of around 759, and a deficit of around, that makes it, is it 200? What would be the difference now if you are to be genuinely to do a fresh budget?
Honorable Gideon, it's zero, because I did not give you the figures of 13-14. the deficit was about 700 million. Yeah.
That's why I think CC, I was saying, it is impossible. I'm giving you a document telling you this is the money I'm giving you. But in real sense, when you tabulate, as you say, there's nothing. It's a zero-sum game. So does the
Chair.
same issues arise at the IBEC?
Chair.
Honorable Kipkurui?
Chair, all the three of us here, none of us went to an accounting class, but we are very quick in learning. When the CC has said there is a hole, there is a deficit, it addresses the question of what do we have? Where are we going? Because clearly, when again, Chair, you refer to the issue of IBEC, these are the money you budgeted. We approved the Finance Act in the County Assembly to say this is the money that we are going to collect. And by virtue of that, we appropriated even our budget. And so the Treasury will be able to say Nandi County has been dispersed 7 billion based on the equitable revenue as well as also on-source revenue, which we have committed to say we will collect. And then we proceed to commit by awarding tenders, identifying projects. Then we don't meet our own revenue target. So that then is what Waziri is saying is a hole. So the hard hole is going to the next financial year. It becomes a bigger hole.
Proceed quickly, Waziri, because I wanted the next questions to come in pretty quickly.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, to confirm, yes, the hole has been growing, but the priority now is to start filling. The idea is to first stop digging the hole, which we some more.
But CC, you just confirm you're keen on digging by actually revising your projection. 385 was practical.
We just dug a little bit so that we start feeling. But then the idea is, yes, but yes, Chair, to mention really, part of the discussions at IBEC was even maybe helping changing the reporting framework from cash basis to accrual so that we're able to bring out, because when we report even to the Auditor General on cash basis, some of those things, including those deficits, do not appear anywhere in the reporting as it were, and therefore the decision making changes materially had we actually been able to disclose. So beginning 2020, 2021, we are reporting on accrual basis, which in essence is to actually bring forward the big chunk of accrual basis is to bring forward the aspect of pending bills and matching concept, which in this case you need to match resources to the works and all that, so that it will actually inform further budgeting by counties and even revenue allocation from the Treasury. And because of these issues, there's also been harmonization, the attempt at harmonization, and currently there's an on-source revenue workshop happening in Kisumu, which I'm supposed to be there, but because of this appearance, to really try and see then, is it something out of control of counties that they always have to hide their deficit in on-source revenue, so that the Treasury has come up with a uniform circular to ensure that we standardize everything, but also with legitimate statistics. But of course, as they even lecture us, they're also not coming to us with clean hands, because from 1963, theirs has been growing, they've burst their ceilings, but we want to get it right. At our inception stages, our whole of about 800 million, Chair, is not so bad, or close to $1 billion. We can actually begin working backwards.
See, you can't say it is not bad.
That
is exactly what Jubilee kept telling us. Yeah, now we are here. They kept saying, and we kept revising our ceiling. Don't you think the same recklessness will continue? You will be in that office, you will go. Your next person will come, get 1B, 2B, and continue also digging and hiding. Well, is that really prudent, if you say?
No, Chair, Jubilee has never had this honest discussion. For us, we've really started this serious discussion.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Honorable Kipkurui Chepkonyi, before I think I can allow you to raise a point of order, I would also give notice to Honorable Gideon. The next question, I think you'll raise a point of order, and then Honorable Gideon asks the same question as the implementation chair.
Thank you. Chair, I think it is not right to blame Jubilee. We are all in Jubilee. Jubilee is a government, and the government is the people, and the people are us. So we go back to what Waziri was telling us, lying. And he still yet to answer to me who was lying to who. Because Honorable Chair, out of this then, Chair, I would want to request that as we conclude, we want commitments. One, there is a commitment that he said he is going to write to this assembly on the issue of pending bills by per financial year, the cumulative amount before close of business. At the same time, Chair, from his own indication, the whole, whether we stop digging the hole or we stick smaller, we want to understand, we need to have a debt review paper from the CEC and from the department. And you should commit to that and give us time. Additionally, Chair, I would expect that the CEC comes out clear also in written to tell us the ramifications of, on the assumption that we are to pay all our pending bills. He has said it in a way, what will imply to the projects that we had anticipated to do. That's another statement that our written submission that I expect from the CC. And finally, Chair, it is clear then that our own source revenue, someone has been lying to someone. Because if I was going to say that the department has been lying to the assembly, it would be a very bad discussion. Chair, it is important that the department relooks into own source revenue and the declaration and our projections so that we review it early now. One way of stopping the whole being bigger is to be sincere to ourselves. Let us talk to ourselves and say, this is clearly the amount of money that we can be able to collect. Let us not lie because we have been lying to the treasury so that we are able to qualify on the equitable source allocation. So, Chair, we need to review, and I think the department has the opportunity to review our own source revenue projections. The soonest, the better. Thank you.
CC, I think you don't have to respond to that. I'll just direct that the idea of a debt revenue review plan makes sense. You can amalgamate into there, and I'm sure part of your submission in that debt review plan is including giving just a basis, the way you've explained, the basis of the deficits, the basis of the reporting mechanism, and how it may give a false impression vis-a-vis the reality. Then ultimately give the true figures. What is our deficit? What is our debt? And debt in this case, we are referring to pending bills as well as, so that if you amalgamate it to a single document, that becomes much better. That even as we consider the Finance Act, our discussion will be premised on a realistic projection, a realistic plan that you've given to the Assembly. I'm sure I'm sure that will need also the Cabinet to approve. So before the close of this month, you can be able to give us your debt review plan. That would have a clear information on all those issues. Honorable Gideon.
Thank you, Chair. I think I have a number of issues to ask the CC. We have talked of, we are talking of pending bills. And I don't know whether we want to get your undertaking on in relation to resolution of this House. There's a motion that was passed on 26th of November. That is the motion that actually informed you are coming here. We want to know whether you've constituted the pending bills committee that was supposed to be within 7 days. You were supposed to give also a pending bills payment plan. I don't know whether you have that, so that we are in the know as an assembly. And lastly, you need to make available for payment all existing, the exact amount available for payment of all existing pending bills. So you can respond to those three concerns, and then we can make further clarification on the same issues.
On the same note, Honorable Chair.
Cynthia.
Just in line with the pending bills committee. Honorable Chair, before this sitting, I happened to sit in the Pick and Pack committee, and in the submission of the CEC member Finance, the directive from the COB to be able to constitute that pending bills committee, the CEC Finance said it was not a must for them to be able to commit to have a pending bills committee. Honorable Chair, the COB had said by 15th of July 2019. Honorable Chair, however, despite the delay, the CEC Finance, for some reason and somehow, I don't understand how it happens, Honorable Chair. It was on the paper that the pending bills committee has been constituted. Honorable Chair, and the dates, they were insane. I cannot even understand. But I want the Waziri, while responding to Honorable Gideon's question, to confirm how he managed from saying it was not a must and again having it constituted and in the papers. Honorable Chair, I do not want to say backdated, but I want him to explain how he managed to do it after denying in this House, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
CC, respond to them, the three resolutions.
Thank you, Chair. First, just to make a comment and a follow-up on what Honorable Chepkwany said. Yes, indeed. Whereas the situation on the debt review plan and maybe the county debt review and strategy paper, yes, indeed, Chair. Whereas it looks gloom and grim that we are in this, I just wanted to confirm that what other counties are doing is just to roll forward the deficit and hope that another government will come and pick it up from there. For us, this honest discussion is to fix that so that we just don't roll forward and later on it becomes somebody else's problem. We just want to make it our problem, sort it, and going forward we're in a good platform. Therefore, it's really not it is the bad situation as it were, but we really have we are making strides. And the key thing that we are doing now, including the supplementary, was to really sort that matter. On the issue of the total, on Mheshimiwa Gideon's question, the extent or the amount actually of the pending bills, beyond what we have here, Chair, is I just wanted to confirm that we're also grappling with other historical issues. One is on KRA. We had an assessment of 600 million shillings of previous payments that were never remitted to KRA. So that still qualifies as part of a pending bill. And therefore, that is still an item that when I request the House allocates funds, or we actually stop some projects, is that when we have a whole of 600 million shillings of unremitted funds, the risk is once the money hits our CRF, those monies will just be deducted at source if we don't plan and engage in a payment plan. So we will be undertaking, and we've actually been able to have talks with KRA to stagger the payments, but the immediate payment that needs to be made is about 200 million in the current financial year. And therefore, this comes to an issue of cash flows vis-a-vis the budget issue. So if we really still have to pay, on top of whatever pending bills we're talking about, we still have to pay KRA 200 million shillings. Then it means, to an extent, some projects, either we commit knowing very well we'll never pay, or we just hold them fast until we're out of these.
See, there's nothing like either or. The moment you say that, I think
yes.
Honorable Gideon.
I need to get clarification. You are talking of non-remittance of around 600 million of KRA. So, in as far as you are looking at assessing that, is there anyone that has been held accountable for such omissions? Because as much as we would want to carry the burden, because the government lives in perpetual succession, is there anybody, or is there a plan to make sure that those who might have done what we call, those are errors of omission or negligence, or actually what do we call?
Honorable Chair.
Honorable Mangit, quickly.
Yeah, follow up. Let's get a clarity on this. The KRA non-remittance. Is it income tax? Is it VAT? Secondly, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chair, we need documents to show this. And then, unfortunately, again, we don't have any document to show that our county has not been remitting taxes to KRA. So we need documents, and then the CEC also can tell us whether it's income tax for employees or VAT.
CC, answer that quickly on KRA,
Thank you.
as
Yes.
well as the issues raised by.
That one we have a breakdown. It is cut across from withholding taxes from contractors not remitted, pay as you earn, not submitted, and withholding VATs, withholding tax and withholding VAT.
So you can furnish the house with the same.
We have details of the same. Still, these are ongoing discussions we have with KRA on how the same arose. Of course, you realize the burden rests on the taxpayer. So if a taxpayer, for example, needs a tax compliance, and then KRA is able to pick that, well, you are paid by Nandi County, and we don't seem to see your 5% withholding or your 6% withholding VAT, then it still becomes our problem. So that is still an ongoing resolution that we have between ourselves and KRA. But yes, that is the status. But I need to confirm that this is not something that arose. I mean, currently what you're doing, actually ever since we came into office, and thanks also to the system as it has been set, you cannot avoid paying. As you pay the contractor, you pay the taxes. But historically, in the years 2014, 2013, 2015, it was possible to pay and fail to remit to KRA, and then the problem catches up with us. So that is a matter under discussion and under resolution currently.
Maybe, Chair,
and we will,
I think, Chair, I think-
Gideon's question, I think, had not been answered, and I'm sure that's why you are coming back on this.
No, on the same note, Honorable Speaker, I think, Honorable Chair, I think he's talked of the system currently that it can flag off any kind of non-remittance. I think as he gives us the report on the issue of 600 million that is pending, maybe you could also give the current status, because we don't want to assume that things are good. We can be building another hole for some future generation. So we need to be up to speed with everything.
Honorable Mengech, quickly, because I want you to
Yeah,
dispense.
there's an issue Honorable Gideon has asked. It's about
accountability.
yes.
That is what I wanted CC to finish answering. Honorable Terry, quickly, because of interest of time, let us shorten, and CC, please answer that in one go. Honorable Terry, quickly.
Thank you. I would like to ask two questions. One is whether the system also automatically deducts NHIF payments for employees. And again, considering the holes you've talked about, what is the fate of the projects that we continue making allocations in this house, especially ECD projects, because you realize that they are stalled, they continue getting stalled, we add money here, we don't seem anything to be happening. What's the fate, considering the situation you are in? So when I asked about NHIF, anytime you visit the hospital, you want to use NHIF from employees in this county, you are told there are no payments. So as you answer, also know that it's showing not remitted. Thank you.
Quickly, CC, on that, please dispense off and then answer the remaining two questions by Honorable Gideon. Quickly.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, on the NHIF, the system automatically deducts. So it could be a case of a historical non-remittance. So you might need to check your schedule, but on our IPPD, and anytime there's such an issue, you can always print out an IPPD report showing a remittance, and sometimes it's a reconciliation issue. Because this one, there's no way you can pay salary without paying NHIF. Those two are twinned together. Yes, on the question of Gideon, the current status is that we really are up to date on matters taxes. I think the only liability, huge liability we have currently is the liability for the assembly, for the structure there, which we will sort as funds come through. But we are good and up to date. On the issue of the pending bills committee, yes, it is gazetted, and I'd said initially in this house that we really didn't find use for the committee, because as it were satisfied ourselves with the work of the task force report. There are various advisories that we borrowed from the two Auditor General's report, but if it means that funds will be stopped because of non-compliance, sometimes the big brother can twist you. So we are fully constituted, and I have the Gazette notice with me here. On the issue of...
Did you answer how we were so ingenious? Because I've seen that question by Honorable Cynthia saying that we backdated.
No, it's not true that we backdated.
But it reads 30th October. Because we want to learn tips from you who would, as an assembly, we normally do gazettement. That is a miracle. Anyway, proceed quickly.
Yes.
To answer the same.
Thank you.
The effect, Chair, I mean, the debate here is there was serious. The house ideally is more concerned with any funds that could have possibly been lost as a result of not complying with the 31st October deadline, and therefore the first principal thing I'm reporting is that no funds shall be lost as a result of non-constitution of this. We can have another discussion, but I'm not saying any process was flouted, Chair. What I'm saying is we're in compliance as far as the formation of the task force.
CC, you can now confirm. At times, one of the problems we've had with your department is that you are impervious to ideas, you are impervious to suggestion, you are a bit dismissive. That's why, for example, Pick Park would fail, you dismiss and say we don't need it. Then you are forced. In fact, some of the reasons why we are here is because if some of these things you had sent a while earlier, we wouldn't be here. In fact, the assembly was agitated last week because we said the issues the Treasury are raising now, we raised a long time ago. What was so difficult? Can you take the blame as a department that you are impervious to ideas, you are impervious to suggestions, you are a know-it-all? What you guys think is right is final. Now you are forced to work backwards. You are forced to, like, until a force comes that we're not giving you money. Yet some of these issues, you can imagine if you told us upfront last year that we have a hole here, we would listen. We wouldn't even fight. In fact, we would be the ones telling you now, let us be realistic. You have to take responsibility, CC.
Just to say, it's really not being dismissive as such. It is looking at our scenario as it is, vis-a-vis any external manipulation by the Treasury without understanding our scenario. Because if they treated us on a case-by-case basis, we wouldn't really need a blanket authority or a blanket ruling touching on all the counties to do this in order to achieve this. Because the honest conversation is, what the Pending Bills Committee intends to achieve is what we achieved with our task force report. The only problem is with public servants, once a directive has been issued, to have that conversation that, you see, we had a task force report and all that.
But the assembly, let me speak for the assembly. The assembly is enough to give you directions. The assembly is enough to ask that, could you consider this? Don't you feel that as an assembly, we felt that why did we have to wait for the Treasury? Some of the issues we had raised from 2017. That is the main concern. In fact, one of the reasons we are here is because of that. Why do we have to wait up to get here until someone, as you say, external? Yet within the mechanism of the county system, the assembly had pronounced itself. It had given suggestions. It had given proposals.
Which, Chair, we've executed to a huge degree of percentage.
Are you sure, CC? Others wouldn't be here. Treasury wouldn't doing that.
Yes, of course, some challenges are beyond us. Non-implementation.
It does not go to the attitude of the department and the government at large.
Not really. The department is really the custodian of the law, the PFM as it were, and therefore we really cannot say we have a different attitude other than that has been already pronounced by law and the guidelines of this house.
To confirm to you, CC, I'm sure you've seen how they are excited because for 2 years you've not spoken the truth. I don't know what has touched you today. You've spoken the truth. Now we are on the same page on facts and figures. We'll be arguing issues here. Our Finance Act will be coming to the table with more clarity. What was so different for the past 2 years?
Chair, I cannot pick a time I can say I've lied to the House. Perhaps sometimes it's a misunderstanding here and there.
Not necessarily lying, but omission of facts.
Oh.
Because I may choose not to give you facts. I've not lied to you, but I have not given you facts. So we sleep in bliss and pass budgets and say everything is okay. In fact, we now even go back to public participation and tell people the projects will be done like never before. Now we are here. Look.
Well, 2 years is early enough, Chair. At least we are really not badly off.
I will leave it to the politicians to say whether the 2 years are not bad.
Chair,
Honorable Mengech.
Chair, you know, there's this issue that Honorable Gideon has asked, and I even asked earlier about the ineligible pending bills, the issue of accountability. My question following that is, do you have a suspense account for withholding tax? Secondly, who generates certificates for contractors and suppliers who generates their certificates?
And as he answers that,
Honorable Gideon, quickly.
And as he answers that question, you need to be clear on, we have talked of responsibility for such an error like a very huge 600 million tax arrears is not just a pocket change as we normally say. That's a lot of money. Who is this that should be held accountable so that we can, even as we try to cover the whole, we know that somebody is somewhere paying for the same.
Alfred, you will answer on accountability and the two questions. One was the issue of the pending bills payment plan. Number two, it was the total amount available for all existing pending bills. Those three in quick succession. Start with the question of accountability. That is very important because inherited problems have to be addressed. Even us, when we'll be out of here, we'll have to answer for our sins. Proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the issue of accountability, and if I'm to make it in reference to the tax, is that when KRA gives you an assessment, even before you go on issues of accountability, you also have to undertake a verification process. So what has been happening between us, our officers and KRA, is confirming some disparities, and you find that there are certain aspects also they did come and to this juncture, we are clear on certain items and not yet clear on certain other items that we are still proceeding. So that the point when we'll now finish paid, as we progress, we still have the other about 350 or thereabouts to still dig one by one. We'll now clearly come to that conclusion of accountability and the systemic failures, as it were, because part of the reason that the system now has come so that you cannot pay a contractor without remitting the withholding tax is to really be able to pick that. If you don't do that, it is deliberate, because you realize some of these things, I'm sure they did out of cash flow issues. Just like every June, we pay salaries minus pay as you earn. Then now it catches up with us in July. And most of the times, if you don't have funds, they will deduct from the source. But the idea is then if you've paid an amount net, then it means you should actually remember to remit the other balances. And the truth is, really, the whole aspect of accountability rests on an accounting officer. And in these historical issues, we really can now, in a structured way, revisit the accounting officers, because it is your duty, and the law, there's the law that guides even non-remittance of tax being treated as a criminal offense currently, and therefore, if it has to come to that, that is something, a collective effort, both by the assembly and ourselves can agree on how to approach on it. On the other issue, Chair.
Questions, the two questions, quickly.
Chair, just remind me the two questions.
The first question, pending bills payment plan, was to be shared within 7 days.
No, Honorable Chair, there's something I asked. Do you have a suspend account for withholding tax?
For withholding tax. Yes. So to just clarify, that is the tax as you pay, how it is wired is as you pay the contractor, say 2.1 million shillings. Yes. You pay 1.9 and immediately you wire the difference to the carrier account. You don't need to hold it for further transfer. It is at the point of executing that the two have to be mashed together.
This issue, Honorable Chair, is bigger than I thought, because the CCM Waziri himself has said it cuts across income tax. So once you pay worker salaries, you pay their income tax directly to KRA. Same way you paid ASINET for a road in Olesos, which was not completed, the tax was remitted directly to KRA. You are contradicting yourself, because you've said in June, when the finances are not adequate, you can hold the taxes so that you can commit it elsewhere. You contradict yourself, Waziri.
It's not contradictory. I'm saying in the map, in how the system has been mapped, you cannot prosecute a net pay without the corresponding tax. So that a choice to clear the balance is actually, I mean, it's not even a choice. If you clear the net pay, say for example, salaries, if I pay the pay as you earn, the rest of the taxes are, if I pay net salaries without the pay as you earn, all the other items are hanging, and it is clear that these have to be remitted. They'll take the first charge in the next disbursements. Unless...
And thank you, that is adequate. Now the other issue is who generates withholding tax certificates for the contractors and suppliers?
These are system generate the withholding tax certificate. No, that's a KRA document. Or you mean the completion certificate?
No.
The withholding certificate, you as a client.
Yes.
Because you are the one who withheld and paid KRA, you are supposed to issue them with a withholding certificate. So the question is, who generates?
Yes, a payment, we are able to compute and to separate the two. A payment of a construction, for example, will have 3%.
I think the question is the withholding certificate, the document, who generates?
The real ideal document that we call a withholding tax certificate comes from KRA. Once I pay the taxes, I generate the certificate immediately from the system. But that is best informed on what we at the payment has been able to feed into the system. And therefore, we can authoritatively say we determine exactly.
I think you've answered the question because you said you generate yourself.
Chair.
That was the question.
Honorable Chair.
I'll give Honorable Cynthia first.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. With the mention of the withholding taxes, there is also something called retention. When you pay the contractors for the works done, there's something called retention. I would want to know where this retention money goes, if we have an account for them or how it operates, because I don't seem to understand.
Honorable Kipkurui.
Chair, now there is something there. Mengate has asked if we have an account that are withholding for where we pay all the taxes before we remit to KRA. Waziria said, when we pay net, we can be left with the taxes. You're not saying there is an account that which is left from the gross goes to. You're also saying it is paid directly to KRA. And you're talking of a system that is in place now. My question is, when did the system start now paying directly to KRA, so that now you're able to clarify and say the 600 million tax arrears, which you are yet to verify with KRA, where did it emanate from?
I think that's a very clear question. Please just clarify that.
Thank you, Chair. When you pay net, the simple reason you paid a net is because you didn't have enough funds. Otherwise, the two I said are twinned. If you have 100 million and taxes are 5 million, you route 95 million straight to the supplier or the staff, and the 5 million straight to the KRA account. A scenario, what I said of June is, you have an amount, your salaries say is 280 million, but you only have about 250 million. So what you make a decision is, let us pay the 250 as salaries, compute the tax and let them hang in the system. When we get the funds, we clear off. This, we are always given up to 9th. For pay as you earn, we're always given up to 9th of the following month to clear, after which either they sweep the money in your account, or actually you, or actually they
so you can confirm there's a specific timeline.
There's a specific timeline, but I can, on what he said on when the system kicked in, I think it's about 2015, 2016, thereabouts. But you remember how it used to work those days is there was no requisition process. Nowadays, that has been taken care of by requisition process, where you disclose all that by the time the control of budget approves, before you upload and do the payments. It is clear every item, any tax applicable is there. But initially, they used to just pay a blanket figure without really taking care of these tax issues.
The second question by Honorable
Chair, I'm not concluded. You know, Chair, I'm an interested party in the issue of
Honorable
arrears.
Chepkony, please, until I give you a chance to speak.
Okay.
Honorable Kipkurui Chepkony, you had asked a question on retention. Please answer that quickly.
I think it was Mheshimiwa Cynthia also.
Yeah.
Yes, ideally this ought to have been there, but we opened when we came in, we opened and we set a threshold for certain contracts beyond a certain amount, we withhold 10%. It doesn't make sense, again, you withhold even a project of say 1 million, you withhold 100,000. But the percentage is 10%, right? Yeah, so we withhold for amounts 4 million and above, contracts of 4 million and above. And that is a commercial bank account, which then should be reported in the accounts as part of the client deposits, as it were, because after a certain period lapses, then they can claim money from that account. But I need to confirm that historically we didn't have that. So we've had cases of clients or contractors coming to ask for their retention when there is no record anywhere. Maybe yes, it was retained, but retention in this case didn't mean that they transferred to an account. They were just retained, but never segregated or set aside. So that is a challenge we're also trying to address on a case-by-case basis.
Proceed on the second question.
Chair,
Honorable Kipkurui, can I give you a chance?
Yeah, just a minute, Chair.
Wait, Honorable Kipkurui. We are losing these two questions, then you can come with your question because it is on the same. Could you answer first those two questions that were expressed? The first one was the pending bills payment plan that you are to submit within 7 days. The second one is the total exact amount available for payment of all existing payment bills.
Thank you, Chair. The payment plan, of course, is pegged on the budget. And when we really say first in, first out, it means that as money is available, we allocate to the first bills, which in this case are the 420 million shillings. But the plan is that every department has now gone back to just do a final check on those projects. As and when they finish, the faster they finish, as they finish in that order, then we actually just allocate funds. And also this is dependent on the funds we receive. For example, Chair, we've been receiving an average of 430 million. When we get 430 million, we pay salaries, which is a first charge, about 288. We remove for assembly, maybe 35 million. And then we remove, say, the priority items like the tax. We were talking about the 39 million shillings. So in a year, you've planned to pay, but you realize the balance you've been left with is 10 million shillings. So sometimes, whereas we might want to pin down to an exact payment plan of this month, we'll pay this much. Sometimes you're given an amount which really, beyond salaries, you're not able to allocate. But the idea is, as long as it checks
I think the
charge.
question here was,
Yes.
After considering all those factors, you met the Treasury last week.
Yes.
You gave them a proposal. Could you furnish the Assembly with a simple write-up that is like, because the first questions we asked you are the total amount payable, blah, blah. So the next thing is, how then do we seek to pay? Just a write-up for the same.
Yes, I will, Chair, I will be able to provide that, and I had a write-up which I'd wanted to share with the House. I will do so. I will do so in terms of what I wrote to the Treasury. I will provide.
The issue is we can be able to read the document and see what is the plan to offset these spending bills and the timeline, because the two things is just the amounts and the timelines.
Of critical focus, Chair, what you'll focus on is how much were we allocated, what have we received so far, which we've since expended.
I think all should be in that document.
Yes.
As we see the document, we should get all those answers. The last question was on the exact amount available for payment of all existing pending bills. That was a direct question by the move of the motion. Exact amount available for payment.
We add the 259 million shillings plus all what we've classified as works in progress in that order. So that should give us the fair figure. If we say that takes first charge, that is why, Chair, we've even gone ahead to ensure we have some austerity measures so that anything that comes, we give priority to those pending bills.
So we can only speak to 259.
259 plus what has been classified as work in progress, which most of those are actually complete. But
How
as I
much?
said,
How much? Can we talk about figures?
Yes, sir. When we came in, it was 1.6 billion. When actually at the beginning of the year, it was 1.6 billion. But of that, we paid about about 350 million shillings. So we're talking of another figure of about 1.3, but that has both works which are ongoing and a portion of that is already complete. So that's what I'd said. I will pick the element of the complete ones, add to the 430, 420 something, and then that becomes the figure.
You mentioned 259 because the available amount is 259.
Yes.
As per the budget.
Yes.
Including
the
work in
259.
progress is to pick up as at when they are completed.
They're complete, yes.
So we need to give a timeline to this committee.
I can provide by today is Tuesday.
When are you making the last payment for the year?
When am I?
Making the last payment for the year.
We always make, you always given up to 30 June.
No, I'm talking about this year, this year, 2019. The last, because we are in the last month, which is December. The last possible payment can be made at what point this month?
That really depends on what we'll get from Treasury.
Whatever you get, the last payment would be available at what point? Timeline. We just want to, because we want to fix for you the timeline in giving us a submission to say these are the amounts that we intend to pay, and these are because we want to peg it on as at this month. The last time you'll requisition for the payment is when?
Point of information, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Pius.
I wanted to to us in terms of, okay, he has given us the amount available for payment of pending bills as 259. I wanted to ask whether whether he has actually included what we provided in the supplementary.
Is that what is in the supplementary 259?
Yes, that is what is in the supplementary.
Now, for work in progress, can we give you as at close of this week? Could you give us projection as at close of this week already
Chair,
approved work?
I think, Chair, clarity.
Yes,
Honorable
I think
Gideon?
that makes
You're
sense.
talking of 259 in the supplementary. We had a budget of 150 million. In the main budget, we had 150 million
Then it was-
classified as pending bills. Plus 259 in supplementary.
No,
I think
plus
he-
100 to,
Plus
yeah,
100.
to get it to about 250 million. To really say, I mean, when I look at end of financial year in June, we can actually say that is an amount we can almost, even before we start on these others, these priority. But of course, dependent on departments actually verifying the projects and getting the contractors to certain issues that might need to get it to a position that it meets the big queues.
Give us for the work in progress that are as at now.
Yes,
So
for-
that we can be able to have a figure in our report. We can be able to say as at when we met the Department of Finance for this, how many, I think 5 or so,
5.
plus maybe previous, any work in progress that was there as at this week.
Yeah,
Be able to
17,
add
18.
that to the 259.
Yes.
You could
17,
give
18,
us
and
in your
18.
submission.
Honorable
Chair,
Yes,
Chair,
Honorable
I've been
Mengech.
waiting, Chair.
Honorable Mengech.
Yeah, thank you. In relation to what Waziri has said, I would ask him what is the first charge on our revenue in terms of payments. What's the first charge?
On any monies that we have, of course, since we don't have any loans, it is the salaries.
And then what about the pending bills?
Well, salaries takes the first charge. Pending bills now comes in the
Immediately
form
after
of
salaries.
first in, first out.
Uh,
But of
honor-
course, you would appreciate, unless we take drastic measures, sometimes if you really need medicine, you might want to pay for medicine before you pay a contractor. Unless we decide, no, close that facility first, we pay pending bills.
In relation to that, Chair, you'll allow me to ask, as at 30th November, what is our workforce?
Well, that's some information I would need to get from the department.
Maybe the CEO can help you because he's the one paying salaries, and definitely you know the number of workers you have. As at 30th November, the ones you're paying salaries for November. Because it's a big 288 million a month. It's massive.
Yes, of course. I mean, there's been dynamics in that. We can show clearly there's been a growth in our payroll, occasioned by one. There are major things. The reason we actually did the supplementary is you realize every July, SRC effects a circular that increases, automatically promotes everyone, and is automatically effected on the IPPD. That was to the extent of about 87 million shillings, things which we had not anticipated. When we also, I mean, there was of course some level of hirings for cleaners that happened also for the health department, and then there's been an attempt to improve some services. Those who are in casual were improved to contract. There's an implication in terms of an increase in the figures also for the payroll. But when you really look at still our staffing needs, the truth is we are not even at optimal.
CC, I think it is not in your
Yes.
place to justify. That is not your docket. Ours is just the figure. We have had a problem as an assembly getting the true figure. We want to help you. When you come to us seeking supplementary on recurrent, we understand. But we cannot help you if you don't get the true figures. The finance department can give us the true figure of who they pay. Once you give us that, it is out of your hands. It is not up to you to justify. It is not your docket. It is not your problem. Your problem would be, where do I get money to pay that? And that's why we are here to try come up with solution for the same. So can we undertake to get that figure? The chief officer, I'm sure he's here. By close of business, in part of your responses, could you get the figure based on what we pay in our IPPD system?
Yeah, the fact that figures are not available to the chief accounting officer, Chair, means there's a problem with the 288 million. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I would like to ask Waziri, now the first charge is salary, the second charge is pending bills. So we have pending bills of 18-19, we have pending bills of 17-18, and we also have pending bills for 16-17. Of course, you have said FIFO, first in, first out. That is okay. Now, what plans do you have now that looking at the figures that you are anticipating? It is very little. It's very little. Even though we've talked about in our supplementary budget 259 million available, but the kind of money that you're receiving from the treasury is very little. And we're already in the second quarter. So as the chair has asked you, the strategies that you have so that you can pay this by the end of this financial year. I don't know how you're going to make it, because we have those historical pending bills and 18-19 pending bills. I don't know how we are going to make it. Which one are you going to pay first?
Of course, definitely it's the historical. So that means until we clear the 259, we will not pay anything for 17-18 or 18-19. But well, as I said, towards the end of the financial year, you realize the payments are substantial. We'll be able to actually be able to pay some for 17-18 and 18-19, which are complete. The good thing, of course, we all know is that projects are ongoing. So everything that we have in the budget will not be, there'll be no demand of us to pay all those. That is why when I provide the report of what has actually been completed, you realize we are more or less okay in terms of the speed of payment and the speed of completion. We're not so far off. But now, since we are prioritizing the 259 million, there'll be some hold on the current bills as we sort the historical ones. But I believe we deal with these issues as they come. By the time we are in 30th June, we look at the scenario and make a new strategy based on what we'll have achieved.
CC, with your honesty, I think part of
Chair.
our gallery has contractors. I don't think it's good news for them, but I'm happy you're honest. 30th June, which is almost 7 months away, they just need to grapple with the same. I hope your department gives clear communication so that there shouldn't be an expectation in the absence of the reality. But importantly, you've clarified, which I would want in your document to have, where you said prioritization is as per you've mentioned, historical, then existing. And that is pegged on what money you receive. So make sure the same comes out clear. And I would ask, because the house will communicate, but your department will have the obligation to give clear communication so that there cannot be two ways. Some of the time we receive petitions on issues that if you'd given them the truth, that is the truth, it would be easier. You shouldn't even come here in form of a petition that we don't have to call you again to say this is what we agreed upon. If you can stick to that and put it in writing, the better. But you'll still have a responsibility to communicate the reality.
Chair.
That is the truth. Honorable Kipkurui, checkpoint.
Chair, I think also as the team goes to write us on the status of the pending bills and submit to this assembly, in the spirit that the team has come in today, you look at the pending bills, they have all been itemized per department, per contractor, per project. I think that's the way it will also come in that light. And Chair, I think there is one thing that Waziri has said, that let's see what we can be able to do by 30th. But clearly, we also know the much we can get by the end of the financial year. So it is only about the matter. The matter should be how much we get in this quarter and in the next quarter. But we know cumulatively how much we can be able to access at the end of the financial year. So it's not, it is simple arithmetic for us to be able to know what we are able to do at the end of the financial year. I am still interested on the issue of tax arrears. I think, Chair, this is a matter that has hit the counties across. County assemblies have been, their accounts have been wiped by KRA because of tax arrears. And tax arrears, not like what Waziri is saying, pending verification. No. If they have done an audit and they have charged Nandi County 600 million, before you know, 600 million is gone. So I would be so much interested in knowing what strategy the CEC has in addressing the 600 million charge, tax arrear charge by KRA, not to affect the payment of pending bills or even implementation of the budget. as much as
Quickly,
we are also
Honorable
talking
Member,
that,
we are
Chair,
running out of time.
you and I know very well that from what Waziri is saying, yes, we know there is an account for holding the taxes. What exactly is our arrears, the tax arrears? Because we should also agree that KRA is one of the suppliers or service providers that we are holding a bill or we are in debt to. So that also, as we're talking about 259, how much are we owed by KRA and how do we want to pay that? Thank you.
Just answer that one question on KRA, and I think it's a concern that affects all of us. I think we are one of the assemblies that has been a victim. So proceed quickly, because the problem with KRA, they have ability to enforce.
Yes.
Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Of course, I said of the 600 million shillings, we are still confirming, but we've since been able to confirm, as I did, 250. We've engaged and entered into an arrangement with them. We've actually had to go to visit their offices so that they don't enforce the rule, and we told them once we have the supplementary or the bit touching on the payroll, we should be able to process. So that is
Have you provided anything for the 250?
Yes, on the payroll, part of the adjustments on payroll is to take care of what pay as you earn was never remitted. So KRA has asked us between now and April to pay 150 million shillings. So, Chair, these are things we keep managing. That we will process the first payment once we operationalize and we get the funds. We should be able to process the first about 50 million shillings. And nonetheless, this house should not be so scared, because it is a going concern. The government is a going concern. We win, we lose on others. So this issue of KRA, we are on top of it. And if we can manage to pay the 50 million, we can actually talk to them. They give us a reprieve of 1 month. We skip another month. We pay the other one. And of course, now, definitely, as Mheshimiwa Mengeche had asked, this one takes first charge of the pending bills, because as you rightfully say, we don't pay, they just deduct at source. So then we will manage. So it is grim and all that, but we are on top of it and we're lucky. Most of the counties, they've had to sweep
I like
the money.
your double edge, where you serve the bitter reality and then you still say you are on top of it. You can be on top of a very difficult situation. But I don't think, don't feel that you have a reason to massage our fears and no, just be as it is. Tell us as it is. There's nothing, we will go process the reality ourselves. I think the next question quickly, now that you've answered that, the next question was about the 69 million that was due. You were to give the plan, how the same could be paid. That was important. Proceed, because that was part of the pending bill that was only touching on the assembly. Your proposal on the same?
Yes, thanks, Chair. The 69 million touches on
and I want to acknowledge that you've already paid 87. As at the time we came in, 87, so far so good, had been paid. So we also acknowledge the same. Don't think that we don't acknowledge, but we want to make it clear that as soon as we finish this, there'll be nothing between the assembly and the county executive. So we acknowledge 87 that was paid, 17 between 2017 and 2018. So the only balance is 69. What is the plan?
Yes, Chair. I mean, I had written to this house, and I have a copy of the letter on the same. Well, really, that would entail us getting a supplementary again to be able to provide, because as you understand, whereas deductions were made, there was no attempt to separate it into another account, and you find it's either it's been just rebudgeted or it's just formed part of.
So realistically, for this financial year, when we do a supplementary,
that is an item still, Chair. You really realize the budget we've been working on has been very tight. The reallocation has been to first of the pertinent issue of the pending bills. I would still wish to engage informally with the clerk as we see the cash flow demands on that car loan and mortgage. If we can determine that it can wait a bit, because the first thing is I've acknowledged, which then means there's a promise. There's a promise that indeed we have to sort it.
But the acknowledgement now just needs, because I'm sure the next supplementary, the earliest we can talk about it is March or April.
Yeah.
And the assembly has always shown its willingness to listen. Last week in record time, we were able to approve our supplementary on the strength of the issue of pending bills. So this one is also a pending bill. Can you not, because we have come within hands. So why don't you offer something in return?
Yes, Chair, I'd really I'd really be willing to offer the 69, only that I don't want to offer hot air. The 87 million really, Chair, has been quite an improvement on it. So therefore, I would say, I would wish, because I know the assembly.
With all due respect, CC, I'm happy with your choice of words, and I'm not asking for hot air. I'm asking for real cash. So you are very right. We are asking for real cash. So you'll have to give a commitment.
Yes, Chair. Well, if we were to really make the discussion, I know, Chair, all the honorable members have taken the loans and all the stuff.
That is not the basis. The institution has posterity.
I'm just trying to come
You
to
will
the
be now
point.
making your case more difficult.
No, I'm just trying to
Chair,
say.
point of
in
information,
light
Chair.
of that,
Honorable
Point of
Richard
information,
Point.
Chair. Honorable Chair. Yes, every member possibly has gotten the mortgage. However, Chair, at this point, we want everyone to carry their load. Chair, you should be telling the CEC, the more you need to pay the pending bill to the assembly, the more we are in problems with KRA as well on the issue of status of account. So we don't want to be the assembly to be penalized on interest. And of course, the Auditor General has always flagged them. So we don't want the assembly to continue being flagged. So I think, of course, don't give us hot hair, but be very clear.
I think the CC want us to be. So we need that commitment, and it has to be followed up in writing. Because as you've seen, it is a light item that we've been struggling accounting for by the Auditor General. You are aware of that.
in March, we just factored this, and
you'll have to back it up with a write-up. And I've noticed that there's quite a number of things we've seen that we do. The House is supposed to adjourn. Can we agree on some of these issues? That because on figures you already had, except those long-term documents that will need cabinet approval. For example, debt review was the second item that needed the cabinet's approval. There were two items. One on the debt review plan. The other one was one more item that will require the cabinet to consider. Anyway, as you look at that, for the other items, by close of business today, because most of them you have them, you just want to, you tidy it up, we get them. Other AOBs that I think will finish up are only two.
Chair,
Yes,
Chair, I think
Honorable Gideon Koech.
Honorable Brui had mentioned this. We would want to have such an itemized document for the pending bills 16 downwards to 2013. And then I heard the CC never addressed well the issue of a plan to payment plan for these pending bills, because that entails even looking at that particular itemized, because when we passed the supplementary the other day, we just gave some block figures. We'd want to know the 100 million, additional 100 million passed in the supplementary. What will be the specific, what would the specific department be in terms of those pending bills, and what will be the specific projects we are talking about? So when we talk of a payment plan, it's not like vile pesa inatoka Nairobi na inakuja kwenda kwa hao contractor. We need to know which of these contracts specifically. Like for instance, in Nandils, I have some pending project for maybe some ECDs and dispensaries, for example. How would the plan be to honor those pending bills and at the same time make sure that the projects actually run? So I think, Chair, as part of the documents that the CEC should clearly present to this House is an itemized schedule of all the pending bills in terms of, and also because all the pending bills will not be paid, like captured in this particular 100 million that we are talking about. How do you plan to have the same address in the subsequent budgets?
I think the direction is clear.
Chair.
Quickly, because you have a very limited time. Honorable Pius?
Okay, my concern is still pending the issue of a money market.
I think you are away, Honorable Pius. I can confirm that the same was addressed. It is in the task force report. What was the page?
Page 327. it is part of what the task force recommended for payment.
There was this concern that this was actually in the main budget, the revised budget or estimates of 2017-18, page 126, where we have completion of a money market, which was allocated 5,470,450, and the same amount reappeared in the next financial year's budget, chairman, and I don't know how it was removed later and taken to pending bills. I'm surprised because I have documentary evidence here. So I don't know. I have them here. Maybe I can
The
give
CC,
you.
as you answer that, Honorable Cynthia.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I just have one last concern about the pending bills that were in the budget for financial year 18-19. It was very specific that roads has 20 million to pay pending bills, agriculture 15 million for pending bills, and the Department on Education 24.5 million for pending bills. Now, by the end of the close or by close of the financial year 18-19, only agriculture had honored the payment of 15 million pending bills. Now, I do not know where the 20 million for roads and 24.5 million for the Department of Education went to. I would want to know because I don't remember at any point this house rebudgeting that money in the budget. So, Honorable Chair, I would like to get a clarification on where that 20 million and 24.5 million, a total of 44.5 million went to.
Quickly.
I follow up on that.
Thank you.
Honorable Gideon.
Or actually attached to that. I heard you talk of payment of pending bills of only 20 million. And you mentioned fish market or slaughterhouse and a dispensary. I didn't hear you mention because there is I think there is some payment that were made for Nandil's Stadium, which is a pending bill. And that payment was made and the status of the stadium horrible. The stadium floods and there is a payment that was made. I don't know what informed the payment, yet an assessment was not done. And I have seen a list of several other projects here falling under the 17-18 paid, which are not yet assessed to the required standard. How do you intend to address such issues?
Starting with.
Yes, for Honorable Pius, he mentioned the money market, which the task force had actually recommended payment based pending sorting a few things, including the verification. You still realize the figure has been brought forward severally, even the current budget, it's there in the 1920, because what happens is if the department doesn't execute, if the department doesn't go and do the inspection and do all the issues pertaining raising a certificate, then the money is not really, we will not pay anything. So that is why it keeps recurring. And since this is a commitment, we'll roll forward a figure. If it was in 17-18 budget, we will roll forward from 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, as long as it's a commitment until when we pay. So that is the situation of the money market. From the time it has been in the task force, we're now it's now a case of the department to really give a clear direction on the issues pertaining to inspection and what needs to be done. I know there were some issues to do with documentation, but I also know the critical nature of that market. Therefore, that is why you rightfully tabled the evidence that it has been appearing all through. And it is, I can actually confirm 18-19 budget, it's still there. And if the department sorts the issues, then we should be able to pay the amount. On the question of Cynthia, she mentioned where the 24 million went and the other money. It didn't go anywhere. It was not there. So really, because, I mean, if we don't commit anything, let's say there is something, an item on the development budget, and we don't procure, at the end of the financial year, it lapses, right? So part of those things are the ones that were absorbed by the deficit in the revenues. I mean, if we didn't meet, the whole idea of sorting the revenue deficit is don't commit some projects, and therefore, if we had a deficit of, say, 320 million, if we don't commit works of 20 million, the deficit has come down to 300 million shillings. But as long as something has not been committed, it just drops and it really goes nowhere. You will realize, I mean, they are billing or accessing money. The only issue we carry forward is if we've committed it, then it comes a work in progress or as bill. So that is the whole stadium.
Just to be clear,
Honorable Cynthia.
the CCM says it was not there. It was committed under pending bills. Pending bills under the Department of Roads, 20 million, and under the Department of Education, 24.5. It is committed unless you want to say in the budget, the item pending bill is not committed.
No, if it is a commitment, then definitely it's there. It is in work in progress.
Thank you.
Yes.
The last question, Honorable Gideon, quickly, because I need to.
No, Chair, the last question is for me.
No. Honorable Gideon had asked a question.
Yes, on the stadium in Nandi Hills. I will just need to actually verify with the department. I don't know. You said it is pathetic. I mean, maybe it got pathetic.
And I think
with the
since
rains.
you understood, we will be going back to the question on procurement.
Yes.
Because you'd understand the reason is even why you find members asking that question. The same line departments point a finger at you.
And that's why Chair had requested that you'll give the procurement head to just clarify how the system works. And therefore, this being a specific matter, I remember at the point of payment, everyone was happy. Maybe the dissatisfaction came.
Let me find out the CC. How long should that take? How many minutes will you need for that?
You'll check 2-3 minutes and it'll be done.
Okay. Can I give you straight?
Chair, point of order, Chair.
Point of order, Chair. CC never got
Honorable
my
members.
Point of order, Chair.
Honorable members.
Let me clarify this.
Honorable members.
I know we have a few minutes.
Point of order, Chair.
Until I give you a chance.
Yes,
members.
Chair. Order on the president's agenda to
Please,
take. Chair.
Honorable Chepkony, you are an honorable member, so you need to wait. I give you the chance.
Let me.
Honorable Chepkony first, then Honorable Gideon.
Thank you.
And Honorable Chepkony, be very brief.
Chair.
I know you are in love with so many words.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think the first so that I am not in love with so many words, we will not.
You're already talking
We
more
wouldn't
words,
want
so
to
the
allow
lesser the better.
the head of procurement in this discussion. If we had not invited him, if the CC cannot respond to that, we refer that to another matter. Because, Chair, today we were addressing other matters, not procurement issues. So, Chair, that was my point of order.
Fair enough.
And the last question then, that I decided to be the last to ask, was that curiously, just want to know whether the conditional grants can also end up being pending bills. Secondly, the issue of meds or this equipment, leased equipment, the mess that has really messed us up. I would want to hear a statement from the CC on that, because the two items, conditional grants and the mess, takes a lot of our money. As much as we talk about 5 billion, the conditional grants are so huge that if they are, we just need to know, are they part of pending bills? So, Chair, I think the 2 minutes that he wanted to allow the head of procurement to address that, he can be able to address the questions.
I think my answer to that will be simple. In your
Yes.
submission, the procurement person, I'm guided, and it is true that the invite was mostly on you. I just thought about it because you can see we are going round and coming back to the same issue.
Maybe,
I
Chair.
think in your write-up or in answering, we need a clarity on this matter, because we seem to be going back forth. And I know it will always recur unless we address that bit. Honorable Gideon.
Chair, I think my issue was the CC said they have only paid 20 million for pending bills. And I've said there is a stadia, the payment for the stadia. So my point was, clearly it shows that even as we talk of pending bills and payment of 20, it is more than that has been paid. And you've not disclosed all these projects that have been paid for that fall under pending bills. As part of the reports that the CEC is supposed to give, can he clearly give all the pending bills that has been paid for already?
I think the CC in your response, the only additional thing was itemized. The question by Honorable Chepkwony, one was touching on conditional grant. Quickly.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we will itemize on that. Really, we were not trying to hide anything. Whether conditional grants can become pending bills, they only become pending bills if works have been finished and the donor, so to say, has not given us funds. Because how it works is that when we receive money from donors, we always put it in a special purpose account. So whereas we have no money, say, from our equitable share, but if we had received anything for conditional grants, they're always locked somewhere. For example, the Kenya Roads Board will always put it in a special
RMLF is one of them.
RMLF.
Now, we have a complaint that we got for the assembly.
Okay.
That out of the 33, 6 have not been paid.
Of what? The
RMLF. So what would be the consideration for that? Work done. In fact, one of them, I think, is Showground. Iru Road. Already complete but has not been paid. Honorable Fred can confirm that the road was done very well. Honorable Fred.
Chairman, waja hata nisimame. Unajua, nilikuwa nachangaa. Wamelipa ile barabara haijatengenezwa, lakini ile ya Showground imetengenezwa haijalipwa. Kwa sababu hata baada ya hii ningeomba kesho niwatembeze mwende muangalie. Hii Rural Road nafikiri huyo jamaa mwenye alitengeneza hata si mtu ya kaunti ya Nandi, lakini yeye ndiye ameongoza Nandi kaunti mzima. Lakini wakalipa ule mwenye hajafanya wakawacha huyu mwenye hajafanya. Hata tungependa twende, unajua pengine wasiri wewe unatulumiwa, tembea. Mimi kama MCA uniulize barabara gani imeisha. Kwa sababu unajua engineer yenye uko naye ni ule mwenye alikuwa kwa ile serikali, ule mwenye aliangusha sisi nyumbani, mpaka wewe uangalia kwamba barabara gani imetengenezwa. Alafu ya mwisho, hakuna siku utatumia mfanyakazi yako unaacha watchman kwa mlango. Lazima uambie watchman, gari imeingia. Kwa sababu mimi ndio watchman ya Kapsabet. Mimi niko kwa mlango yako. Wewe umelipa huko niuliza. Ndio unaona saa hii hata nashangaa. Nimeenda mpaka huko. Saa hii nimetoka huko kwa wananchi kuwaonesha vile ilifanyika kwa sababu tayari walikuwa wanataka kunifukuza nyumbani. Na nafikiri wasiri shughulika. Ile hiyo engineer mwenye na nimesikia hata hakuna mtu mwenye aliandika barua kwamba hii barabara imeisha. Ma engineers nimewauliza wanasema wewe unajua. Hata wewe umefanya mzuri kwa kuja hapa leo. Kwa sababu kila kitu inamwagwa kwa ofisi yako. Tukiita mwasiri wa LD, ofisi yako. Tukiita wa barabara, kwako. Tukiita trade, kwako. Sasa hiyo ndio maana tulikuwa tunakuita to proof ya kwamba hii maneno wanasema ni ukweli. Lakini nimeona ni ukweli kwa sababu kuna mambo umelipa na haijafanyika.
See, and I think that one touches on conditional grant because as you say, it is locked in.
Yes, it's locked and
quickly.
So maybe the CEC can finish what he was responding to.
Okay, proceed quickly.
Yes, I wanted to tie on the issue of the conditional grants that those ones are always transferred to a special account. As we speak, Chair, we even have money in the RMLF account awaiting for any final documents to pay. The truth of the matter is, there can't be a complaint of somebody who's not been paid unless the problem is with his quality of work or matters touching on the department that have not finalized, because we have funds for RMLF. Those were conditional, we can't really touch. And if we were
want to say that the blame lies squarely with the department.
It is not even a blame. I'm saying, depending on the nature of the complaint, you're saying they have not been paid.
For example, that case where Honorable Fred has actually, because we had to verify, say the work was complete.
Yeah, because what I can confirm is there is 0 documents for RMLF to be paid in our office. In fact, if they came, we would be willing to pay. And that is, by the time the documents come, they've gone through the whole process. So you just need to go back to understand what is happening. He's saying it's not been paid. Yet in finance, we are saying we have money. Where is the issue?
I think the CEC, that will be our benchmark to understand who tells the truth between the department versus yourself.
Yes.
We can use that as a case study because you've said for the conditional grant, it is locked in.
Yes.
As long as you don't have the documents, you can pay. So let us use that as a benchmark.
Yes.
Honorable Mengech, quickly.
There is something Honorable Chepkwony asked, and Honorable Speaker, you know we have been discussing this, the managed equipment scheme.
Tulishaje wana mwenyekiti. Nafikiri ningeomba kuna hii barabara ambayo inaitwa Singorwa Kapuria, mimi mwenyewe nilienda kama chama na kamiti yangu nikaangalia barabara yatengenezwa na saa hii inasemekana imelipwa. Kriteria gani hao watu wanatumia kulipa ile kazi ambayo hajafanyika? Hiyo hatutakubaliana kwa hiyo. Nafikiri waziri utajibu kwa hiyo. Kwa nini lilipwa na kazi hajafanyika? Na ile ambapo alifanya vizuri hakulipwa.
So CC, you can see the recurrence, and you know that is the roads chair. I'm sure he's met the department, and I'm sure the information they were given.
Yes, and I really wish to clarify. The notion that members imagines that we can pay something without the paperwork is misguided, and the earlier we get the fact, the better we'll have an engagement here, Chair. By the time we pay, the chief officer of the department has appointed an acceptance committee. They have signed everything. certificate has been signed and it is forwarded to us. To imagine that there can be imaginary documents we use at finance is misguided, and I think
Chair,
from this deliberation by now we should have appreciated that payment cannot be done exclusively at finance without the department being involved.
Chair, I think the
Honorable Gideon.
CEC is indicting the Department of Roads. Can we take your word as an admission that now the genesis of those documents is the Department of Roads, and by extension, because it is confirmed, the chair has confirmed that they have gone to that particular road, nothing was done, and it has been indicated as paid.
Yes, Chair, I want, and this cuts across, all originating documents for payment come from departments, not finance. I would want, even before you say you are indicting the Department of Roads, can we go on that case-by-case basis? We can easily retrieve the documents touching on that and look at the inspection certificate, the committee that are signed, and we use it as a case-by-case basis and see what exceptions exist therein.
Chair, I think now you can give direction on that matter. You can use this as an exclusive example.
Honorable members, Honorable Gideon already given, for example, the case for RMLF, and this one should bring a close to the blame game that as assembly we receive between the department and the Department of Finance. The CC, you've given us your word and you've given us clear statement that there's no day your department can pay unless the line documents originating from the department give you the reason to. So we'll pick up on the same, and all the chairs of the individual committees will deal with the same.
Time, I have two issues which Honorable Chepkwony, I've been raising this issue before the House. That is a managed equipment scheme, which has been, which I believe is the first charge before the equitable revenue is remitted to the county. A resident in Kisii or some other county went to court, and the court stopped remittances. I don't know whether the statement, which Honorable Chepkwony has already asked. And then lastly, I can see your document here, which you have signed, for the supply of a drilling rig machine, and this document is not complete. It's not complete in the sense that you have not indicated whether it has been paid or not. You have only a sum of 59 million. Follow up to that also, we have an issue of request for documents from your office, the tender documents. And I'm happy that the director is here, which you have not presented to this House. How was it possible, first of all, to procure a drilling rig machine? This and I believe is a compressor because it's incomplete. How was it possible to procure a drilling rig without a compressor using money not intended for that drilling rig, because that money was for equipping drilling boreholes in the wards?
Quickly, CC, respond to that last question by Honorable Mengech.
Thank you. On the issue of the leased equipment, the advisory from the Department of Health is Nandi has since received everything that was included in that scheme. Initially, we had the notion that maybe we still needed to receive ICU machines, but the Department of Health, and I think they can furnish the document, is that we've received all that we were supposed to. So maybe the question is on the pricing in terms of the valuation of those documents. And I guess this has been a matter larger than ourselves, because you understand, really the money doesn't come. You see, when they budget, when they show 5.3 billion shillings, it is exclusive of the 200 million shillings they've already deducted. So there's at no time do we even interact with the money. When you look at how our budgeting is, the leasing of equipment is a totally separate line item from the 5.3 billion exchequer releases that we get. So it's not, they don't even deduct at the CRF level. They just remove them even before they remit anything to the CRF. And therefore, I guess the whole aspect of the value for money is still an ongoing debate on that, which I might not be able to adequately address. On the drilling machines, it is and auxiliaries. It is really not under compressor. On the item that you're saying, drilling rig machines, it includes the auxiliaries, the drilling, the bits, the whatever, the pipes, the whatever for use. It is not the compressor. The quote did not include the compressor. It included auxiliaries. So it is not a convenient omission to say that it read a compressor. we procured the compressor using a line item that was indicated drilling rig equipment. In this case, we foresaw a pool. We foresaw that we'll still need to equip the drilling rig. And one of the things that we were looking at was the casings and the compressor. So if we were to, because there's some of those items you can more or less stretch the line, we could use that pool of equipment to mean even a compressor. And since we really needed the compressor, it had to take priority over even the casings, and that is why we really procured on that line item. Of course, the budget amount allocated at that time, I wish we could have had adequate funds. We would have actually been able to procure plus the compressor. But when we look at the complete thing, if you judge us on the 2 years as opposed to just 1 year, you'll realize, well, we've still achieved the objective of getting the rigs and the compressors without necessarily crucifying us for buying one after the other. It's a case of just cash flow management issues. Yeah.
Chair,
You have not responded to the fact that your document does not, has it been paid? The 59 million, has it been paid to Wind Team?
A percentage has been paid, about 34 million, and I guess it should show.
No.
34 million. Okay.
On one side, it's 34 million.
That is what has been paid.
On the other side, it is 24 million. Unfortunately, it does not indicate on the whether it's debt paid or status. The status is not indicated.
Well, that is something that we can clarify.
No,
but the point is, we paid 34 million.
You know, has it been paid or not?
We paid 34. 25 million is outstanding.
So make sure you indicate the status. I think that is what Honorable Mengech is asking, because if you said it's paid, ensure you indicate the date and the status.
Yes, just on a rider to that, so that since we've agreed we're doing a comprehensive report, I would wish that whatever documents we've shared, I will recall so that I give the proper ones.
Thank you.
And these were confidential documents, so it was just for this purpose. Then I'll furnish this house with the proper report.
So we shall have, just a moment, Honorable Chair. Now we shall have one compressor. We have 2 drilling rigs. So the other drilling rig will lie unused for the next another financial year because we don't have it in the budget for 1920.
Chair.
Proceed quickly because our time is up.
Yes, indeed, it is one compressor. I wish we could afford to buy 2. Of course, this is a compressor mounted on a truck. And if we are talking of 2 sites, as drilling happens, a mobile truck, compressor mounted on a mobile truck can almost service two machines at a go, as it were, because you can work on these, you put a number of hours, and then you move to another site. As the casing is being fitted on this one, the compressor can go to another one. But ultimately, the ideal situation is we have 2 compressors, but for now, we can operationalize 2 machines with 1 compressor.
Honorable members, in the interest of time, Honorable Gideon, only one last cost.
The only issue is the CEC has just given his words in as far as the compressor, the drilling rig is concerned. Can he give an undertaking that he will supply this county assembly with the documentation that we have requested?
Honorable CEC.
Yes, we will provide documents that shall be asked.
Which I think we've already asked, so ensure you do that. Now, I'll not ask you to put things. Number 1, every single documentation we ask for, as at close of business is 2. We can give it up to tomorrow morning because today is as good as dissipated. Tomorrow by 9, we can be able to get, we will be able to give back the samples you had shared with us so that you can work on them. Secondly, one concern which you need to take as a department, you normally give us progress implementation report. You are the custodian of the progress implementation report from the individual departments. One of the concerns we have is that they are not done properly. I think we just pick the template from Treasury and that's it. It doesn't give detail. It doesn't give much that the committee can work upon. I don't know if it falls under jurisdiction to police the other departments in their work, because economists who work on them in the individual departments, I'm sure they are seconded from a department. Could you confirm that?
Yes, all economists come from a department. I think there's been an attempt to improve that because there's been a situation where initially there was a missynchrony where documents come before we look at it and actually.
So can you give undertaking that in this particular first quarter, because we wrote for the first quarter, this finance year, we want to see a different kind of a report when we receive them?
Yes, I would wish to know also what the assembly found as missing in that document so that it also becomes an improvement to that document.
So we'll give you a write-up from our assembly. We'll
Yes.
write tomorrow. We'll furnish the department our askings and ensure we have it.
Okay.
So we want to appreciate for your time. We've taken more than time. The plenary is supposed to start. Ensure by tomorrow 9 we get them the write-up. We conclude on this. Importantly, we would ask your department to be more engaging and be honest. The earlier you become honest, the better for the county. It is wrong for the county to sit thinking everything is rosy, which is not the case. Lastly, you've given us an opening to be able to stop the blame game between departments and your department. For the few case studies that we'd have, we would want to bring this to a close. The head of procurement should be able to attach part of the write-up, what he was to submit to this house about the process, so that as we engage the individual departments, we are sure that we can't be always taking the excuse that it is a finance department. So thank you very much. We wish you the best. So the house the committee stands adjourned and will refer back to the house in the next sitting. Thank you.